Hello and welcome. It's a lovely sunny day and we are at the most popular hilltop in San Francisco. The Twin Peaks rise almost 1,000 feet and this is where you want to hike up to for the best views of the Bay Area. Right behind me, the tall buildings, that's downtown San Francisco. And while it's cool and calm here, it's the players at Shack 15 who need to keep their cool as action is heating up at the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour Finals. Day 3 starts now.
Unbelievable how he finds that move.
We've got to call that Prag style. He's going to win the tournament. He's going to show the checkmate to us.
Wow.
He's taken it.
He's done it.
Magnus really looking happy with himself.
It's going to be checkmate.
Magnus shaking his head.
Has,
Oh, look at the bar.
3 seconds.
1 second.
Make a move.
Whoa, okay, crazy tactics. This is just one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen.
This is a dude move, isn't it? Direct.
Wow, he's going straight for the kill.
He is out to win this tournament.
This is so difficult.
Whoa! Oh!
No way.
What is Anish Giri doing here?
Oh!
He's just given up his knight for a pawn. Is this, I mean, either this is genius or it is a mouse slip.
Wait. This move is breaking the rules.
Magnus Carlsen is furious. What is happening? San Francisco has 800,000 inhabitants, and right now this cool city is also hosting 4 of the best chess players in the world. Maybe they are on that iconic tram right now, heading to Shack 15 for Day 3 of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour Finals. In the studio here in Oslo, as always, to guide you through the chess, International Master Jovanka Houska and Grandmaster David Howell. And David, does it seem like the 4 players in San Francisco, do they look inspired, and does it look like they're enjoying finishing the season there?
Yeah, it looks like they're all having the time of their lives, but on the board, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. We've got Magnus Carlsen, who's been on fire, Anish Giri, who's been showing some really exciting fighting chess, but Prag and Wesley So, the other 2 out there in San Francisco, struggling a bit, not at their best, so they need to bring their best game today.
After 2 days, Jovanka, is it possible now to say who you hold as the favorites to win the tournament?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're beginning to see who's in form, as David mentioned. In there, we have Duda, who's playing great chess, and we also have Magnus Carlsen, who's been riding his luck a little bit, but overall very, very powerful. And we do need to see some surges from Wesley So and Pragnananda, who are struggling.
And someone else has won 2 matches so far, both in tiebreaks, is Anish Giri. What a match it was yesterday between himself and young Prag.
What is Anish Giri doing here? Because we thought he would trade off for Black's knight.
Oh!
He's just given up his knight for a pawn. Is this... I mean, either this is genius or it's a mouse slip.
It looked like Anish was super calm in the beginning after making that move, but then he started shaking.
Under 15 seconds for Anish Giri. His body language does not look positive.
He's taken full control here.
We have a result. Prag takes the first game of the match. 30 seconds against 1 minute. Prag here, I think he would take the draw at this point. This is suddenly far from a draw because suddenly either Black's pawn on the A file is going to run through and win the game, or White's knight in the corner, which looks weirdly placed, is going to come back and take Black's G pawn, and White will have 2 running pass pawns on the other flank. Look at this.
Whoa!
This is what I was talking about. Prag is the one putting the pressure on, and Anish is cracking.
Now the pawn can just advance, push the F pawn, and now Anish losing.
Yeah.
What a turnaround.
White's rook does a fantastic job of stopping Black's pawn. It's game over. Black's knight is just so bad. This looks very scary. Black's king can march in. Look at this. It's a losing blunder by Pragnananda. He's lost coordination. His bishop's too far away now. Black's pawn is going to be the killer.
We're going to see tie breaks.
What?
100%.
Something is going to break through against this white king now. It's inevitable. 10 seconds for Prag. Head in hands. It's going to be game over. Checkmate is coming.
Just take the pawn. Rook takes pawn.
Yeah.
Queen takes pawn.
Everything
It
is...
says 100 on the bar. Winning the 3rd game in a row, Anish Giri takes the lead in the Blitz tiebreaks.
Wow. What has happened here?
Oh, very nice, because that's a draw.
I think he's forced to draw Anish Giri. He's given up a piece. Bishop on its own can't checkmate. And look at Giri. He's ready. He knows he's secured the draw.
What a comeback by Anish Giri, losing the first 2 games today. He wins the match in Blitz tiebreaks. This must be one of the biggest comebacks we've seen. Incredible stuff by Anish Giri, taking 2 points against one of the top players this season, Pragnananda. It was a match win for Liam Le against Wesley So. A big surprise there. Wesley So, a big favorite in the tournament, but he's now lost 2 matches. And Jan-Krzysztof Duda, he has won 2 matches yesterday against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Magnus Carlsen. He got all 3 points against Arjun Erigaisi, winning that match in only 3 games. He is on full score. Magnus Carlsen, same as Jan-Krzysztof Duda, 6 points. But has he looked super solid? It feels like there's a bunch of blunders. Is he blundering more than before?
He's very harsh on himself, Magnus Carlsen, and he has used that word blunder a few times. I think his game as a whole is stronger than ever. It's just as good as it has been for the last 10 years, Magnus, but it's the consistency. Just 1 or 2 moves here or there, maybe losing focus, relaxing too soon. It tends to be actually in the later stages of the game when he's already built up a winning advantage, then he lets it slip. And that's something we're not used to from Magnus Carlsen. That's something he has to eradicate from his game. But yeah, he's still the guy to beat in this tournament.
And he is on top of the table together with Jan-Krzysztof Duda, both on 6 points. Anish Giri and Liam Le, they both have 4 points. Anish Giri has won both his matches in tiebreaks. Mamedyarov won the first match and he is on 3 points. Only 1 point for Prag, and on bottom of the table, Arjun Erigaisi and Wesley So both still on 0 points. And these two, Magnus Carlsen and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, will face each other today, and that's going to be super exciting. What chances do you give Mamedyarov?
I mean, I've got a smile on my face, Kaja, because it's going to be fun no matter what happens. Mamedyarev's chances might not be great, but actually he has had a good time against Magnus this season, at least, on the tour. He beat Magnus the last time they played, and if he can show his magical best, Mamedyarov, Magnus cannot relax. He cannot take it easy. So Magnus' favourite, but Mamedyarov, he will entertain us.
Yeah. And let's take a look at today's matchups, because we have some cool ones coming up. This one, Jan-Krzysztof Duda on fire, up against Anish Giri today. Anish sitting in San Francisco. Wesley So, he needs to start scoring some points, and today he is up against another player on 0 points, Arjun Erigaisi. Pragnananda, he lost yesterday. Today he faces Liam Le, coming from a big win against Wesley So yesterday. But we will follow world number 1, Magnus Carlsen. He is also the tour winner today against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, who played in the final in the previous tournament, the AIM Chess Rapid. He won the first match here. Is he just getting better and better in this online rapid format?
He's looking good, Mamedyarov. As you mentioned, this season it's gone on an upward curve for him. Yesterday, he had a bit of a tough time against Duda. It was a great match by the Polish player, but yeah, he is just looking in top form. And he mentioned it himself. He's played some of the most beautiful games of his whole career just this year. So yeah, he's just looking great.
Yeah. And 1 year ago, these two actually played another match against each other in the tour finals of the 2021 season. And that match was simply epic.
I remember the tour final when you played against Magnus. You won with a white, then Magnus won with a white, then you won with a white, then Magnus won with a white. And in Blitz as well, white win for both. And then Armageddon, I think.
Yeah, Armageddon played with white, yeah. Yeah, of course, it's every time to play against Magnus is big pleasure, and it's very nice to play against him much. I mean, in one day, 10 games is very nice, very interesting. I say after match, I say with my second, maybe I am only chess player in the world to beat Magnus Carlsen one day, 3 games and lose match.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, nobody can beat 3 games Magnus Carlsen in one day and to lose match. Yeah, I mean, it's for me interesting. I mean, I was very happy with this match.
What a match. 4 rapid games, 2 blitz games, an Armageddon game. All of the games was won with a player with the white pieces. Magnus eventually in Armageddon. But is there any chances we can see the same kind of drama today between those two, Jovanka?
You know what? I wouldn't bet necessarily against that happening, because we have seen Shaq play some incredible chess over the tour. I mean, just look at his games from the AIM Chess Rapid. They were just superb. And if he brings that to the table today, then anything can happen, and we might even see Shaq beat Magnus again.
Yeah, because they have played another match against each other this season in the Oslo Esports Cup, and that was a huge match win for Mamadjarov. Final round of that tournament, winning 2 games to take the title in that tournament away from Magnus. I mean, how impressive was that by Shakhriyar, David?
It was incredibly impressive. The games were really high quality as well. Magnus was in decent form. Magnus was leading, and Mamadjarov played the role of spoiler. And Magnus, he does bear grudges. He will have a score to settle. And yeah, I mean, I just love the clash of styles today. It's going to be so fascinating to see those games.
And it is maybe one of those opponents where it's actually kind of hard to say that Magnus Carlsen is the favorite, because if you take a look at the head-to-head scores between them, 5 wins for Magnus, 5 wins for Shakhriyar Mamadjarov from last season and this season. They are on 50%. And actually this season, only 1 win for Magnus Carlsen, 3 wins for Mamadjarov. Is it possible to say that Mamadjarov is a slight favorite today?
I think so, if you just consider the statistics. But I mean, Magnus Carlsen is Magnus Carlsen. We have always seen him level up as well, especially when he wants to.
And here we see the world #1 arriving, Shaq 15, in San Francisco, ready for day 3 to face Shakhriyar Mamadjarov.
Hey Magnus, how are you doing today?
I'm okay.
It's Shaq today, and with his aggressive style, are you looking forward to some chaos?
Yeah, I think this could go. Yeah, this could go either way today.
Now, we know that in Miami it was the podcast, and we've been... Hey Magnus, how are you doing today?
I'm okay.
It's Shaq today, and with his aggressive style, are you looking forward to some chaos?
Yeah, I think this could go. Yeah, this could go either way today.
Now, we know that in Miami it was the podcast, and we've been waiting to ask you, do you have a playlist ready for Shaq?
No.
All right, good luck. Anish, both you and Duda have won both your matches so far. How are you feeling about facing him today?
Yeah, every day is very strong here, very tough. So looking forward.
How do you assess your chances against him?
42%.
Loving the percentage. Tell me one thing before we let you off. What do you predict will be the critical factor in today's match? All right, on that note, all the best. Wesley, how are you feeling today?
Very good. Another day, another match.
It's great to see you with a positive mindset. I have to ask you, you're playing Arjun today. It's a critical match for both of you. Fair to say that for the upcoming rounds and getting back on track?
Well, I wouldn't say it's critical. It's just another match, basically.
a new match, a new day. Take it one match at a time. Arjun's a very strong player. He's improved a lot. He's reached over 2,700 recently. He's one of the best young talents of Indian chess. And it's actually my first time playing him. So I'm very excited. I've been watching his games. I watched his games in the Olympiad. And I'm very impressed by his play. But I'm not exactly sure how he does on speed chess with lower time controls.
We look forward to a big fight. All the best, Wesley.
Yeah, thank you.
Wesley So and Pragnananda, 2 of the 4 players in San Francisco. Game start at 12 o'clock for those 4 players. Liam Le is also in the US, sitting in St. Louis. Today, a big fight is between Magnus Carlsen and Shahryar Mamedyarov, who starts the first game at midnight in Azerbaijan. We did talk to him the first day, Mamedyarov. He struggled a little bit with playing at night.
Yeah, he had to adopt his or change his strategy. He said that he started to play a lot more solid chess towards the end of the day or the beginning of the morning, so we speak. But when it comes to time control, I mean, Shaq did say, you know, they're all professional chess players. They will have adapted.
Yeah. 3 days now into the tour finals, so hopefully they have adjusted to the late time for the players who are not right here at the Ferry Building in San Francisco. And David, what do you expect from this match? What kind of chess are we in for with Carlsen against Mamedyarov?
Well, I think it depends on Carlsen's mood more than anything. If Magnus wants to really shut down Shahryar, in the past he's let him play, he's let him entertain, he's kind of tried to meet fire with fire, and that has favoured Mamedyarov. Sometimes you just have to be cynical. You just have to forget the fans, forget the entertainment factor, and just try to bore your opponent to death in a way. And that could be one strategy from Magnus. I do feel it would be foolhardy to really meet Shaq on his own terms. So Magnus, the thing is, these days, he loves a fight as well, so it will depend on his mood.
I think I figured out that when the players go that way, I'm trying to figure out the Shaq 15 building, but probably this is heading into the arena. Yes, it is. So here Magnus Carlsen comes for the first game on day 3. Pragnananda is right behind him. And Prag, he needs to start scoring some more points. He is up against Liam Le today. Anish Giri is already sitting by the board, so is Wesley So. Here comes Magnus Carlsen. He's gonna start with the white pieces against Mamedyarov, and we do know from last season that white pieces meant a win for that player with the white pieces. And we already see the opening.
Yeah, the opening, and it's the Reti opening from Magnus Carlsen. Very flexible stuff, bringing the white knight out on move 1. This is actually something I've played against Mamedyarov plenty of times before, just because I want to kind of kill the fun. If you go direct, if you open with 1e4 or 1d4, the most kind of traditional, most popular moves in chess, he has some really aggressive weapons there. So by doing what Magnus has done, just pushing a pawn now, Magnus is guaranteed a very solid setup. White's bishop is going to fianchetto. White's king has a nice home now on the king side. There won't be that many exchanges. The position won't open up yet. And Mamedyarov playing a bit of copycat, pushing a pawn as well. This is known to be very, very solid for black.
Yeah. I have to say, this type of formation is also very popular with Shaq. I mean, I see it a lot in his games. I mean, he tends to favour it by pushing the d-pawn 2 squares forward, and both players will be in their element, especially in the opening.
Yeah, and I've actually seen them have this position before in the past, and I think that time Magnus pushed his a-pawn forward 2 squares, just creating a pawn sacrifice. It looks a bit like a Queen's Gambit now, White, and this looks very much like a Queen's Gambit now. White is giving up this pawn that's just been captured, and traditionally this has a very dodgy reputation actually for White, but modern computers have shown that White does have sufficient compensation for the pawn that's been sacrificed.
Yeah.
And look at this, Magnus staring up into the air. Mamedyarov playing instantly. They've both studied this before. I think they've both prepared this exact variation.
Definitely, and I know that Shaq is very familiar with this pawn structure. He does like to grab the pawn, so he's not averse to being a pawn up, but having an uncomfortable position. And Magnus, we've seen this type of thing from him many occasions, and there he goes. Knight gets developed.
Yeah, and the reason we say that black's position is a bit uncomfortable is because if you look at the centre of the board, white has those beautiful pawns on e4, d4. either of them could step forward at any moment. You could make an argument for stepping forward with one of them now. One pawn could hit a knight if you push white's e-pawn. The other pawn, d-pawn, stepping forward would explode the position open. Look at white's rook in the centre as well, staring down at the black queen indirectly. Yeah, it's a tension-filled position, and both sides have reason to be happy. Magnus doesn't care about being a pawn down. This is modern Magnus, Magnus 2.0. Since 2019, he loves these types of ideas. But, OK, he does step forward immediately.
He does, and up until this point, so they were actually following a game that Shaq played with the white pieces against Richard Rapport in the AIM Chess Rapid, so will be fresh in his memory.
And wasn't that an epic game? Oh, not from the preliminaries.
Yeah.
Was it back then?
It was the game
for knockouts.
Ah, OK.
Yeah, and we have just... I mean, it was so quick, we almost missed it there. It was lightning fast, but we've just seen a few moves, and Mamedyarov has sacrificed a knight for 3 pawns. And this is really dramatic because he has great compensation for the knight. Black's pawns, look at all of them. There's 8 pawns still on the board. White only has 5 left. So if we do a bit of counting, white has a knight, black has 3 pawns. Technically, it's balanced, but who does it favour here? I'm loving the aesthetics of black's pawn structure, to be honest, especially on this left side of the board. They're so far advanced, they look fantastic, but white's knights are getting ready to jump around. They're a bit tricky to deal with, and both players have gained time from when they started the game. It's already moved 14 in a very, extremely rare opening, and this is, I mean, this is a surprise to me. This is not Magnus playing it safe. I said, play boring, try and just slowly grind down Shaq. That's your best bet. But no, he's, again, trying to fight fire with fire. And this one is started really, really excitingly.
So is it Mamedyarov sacrificing a knight for 3 pawns, or Magnus sacrificing 3 pawns for a knight? What do you do?
It's a good question, Kaja. It's like, is the sky blue? Is that, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, normally we say you've sacrificed if you've given up a piece rather than pawns, even though technically it's level material right now. And the reason I say sacrifice as well, white's knights do look pretty good. One of them is in the black half already. On that left side, it can jump back if it needs to. The other knight might jump forward now. But, OK, first Magnus secures. He anchors that knight on b5 to an outpost with this pawn push.
You said that yesterday. That's a very Magnus move. He loves pushing that a-pawn.
He loves pushing, yeah. And again, this is Magnus ever since 2019, when AlphaZero really revolutionized top-level chess by pushing Harry the h-pawn up the board and also pushing the a-pawn up the board. It's just all about space. It's about control. Actually, in a way, by pushing your rook's pawns, you activate the rooks behind them. And, yeah, Magnus, not just has he taken on that as one of his main characteristics in chess, but he's embraced these kind of positions where there's great imbalances. Before 2019, Magnus was reluctant often to enter these types of murky waters. And, OK, Mamedyarov develops his bishop, also a very sensible move. This is the type of game, we'll see the evaluation bar swing quite a lot because free human, it's far from rational. It's hard to negotiate.
Yeah, definitely hard to negotiate. I mean, there's so much danger for both sides. If Magnus doesn't utilise his extra piece in a good way, then black's pawns are simply going to overrun the position. Meanwhile, the reverse is true. You know, if Shaq doesn't mobilise his pawns in a good way, if they get stopped by the piece, well, then white has an extra piece to attack the black position with. So, drama-filled position. I think a boring draw is the least likely result of all. Yeah. We're going to see a win or a lose, a loss.
I think we can forget the word boring for this this matchup the whole day. I think we're going to forget that one word. And, yeah, this is just chaotic. And they're so principled, these two players. We see other players in the field, such as Wesley So and Ishigiri, they adapt their game according to the opponent. But these two, they're just so principled. No matter who they play, Shaq is going to attack, and Magnus is going to try and kind of surprise his opponent, take them into positions that his understanding is deeper. And, yeah, I mean, here, I'm loving those white knights, to be honest. Often we call these superfluous knights, meaning that one knight is useless. They're both fighting for the same square. But especially when they protect each other like this. But those two white knights, they're both on great squares right now. And, yeah, I mean, I think we can also forget about all long-term factors because it's just purely move by move. Just who can create threats, who can create those pawn pushes if you're Mamedyarov, who can, when the opponent least expects it, unleash some tactics.
Yeah, we're in for a sparkling day of chess. And whilst Shaq is thinking, well, we do have a brain teaser of a quiz of a day because we are asking today for everyone to solve this puzzle. It's white to play and it's checkmate in 2 moves. Now, everyone, this is a difficult one, so you should gather your friends, your family together and have a go. And let us know, was it difficult? How did you solve it? Did you cheat? I was going to say, did you tweet? Did you cheat? Are you giving up? Let us know, and you can do that by tweeting us using the hashtag #ChessChamps. You can also send us pictures of yourself solving the puzzle.
Yeah, together. I mean, you're probably going to need to gather your friends and family for this. This is a puzzle that our producer brought in yesterday, and it had the whole crew here in the Oslo studio working. We gave it to David, and David said, wow, this is the most difficult mate in 2 I've ever seen. And then he solved it 4 seconds later. But still, it's very difficult.
It's extremely difficult. And you guys mentioned gathering friends. I think this is where you need to really spitball ideas. I'll give you one hint. The obvious moves are not necessarily the best ones. And there's only one solution in order to force checkmate on your second move as white. So, yeah, set it up on a board, send those pictures in of you trying to solve it. I'm expecting lots of heads in hands because it's really complicated. And final hint, process of elimination. You might have to try nearly every legal move on the board to get there. But, yeah, think outside the box and you will eventually find that answer.
Yeah. I like these type of puzzles because often it's a good idea as well to work backwards, to find the checkmate, to think about the possible checkmates, and then kind of work backwards and think about how you're going to get there. And it's a study because you never really see a configuration like that. Yeah. So also, like David says, think outside the box, jump out of it.
Yeah. It's super fun as well to sit down, either by yourself or with friends and family, and just really try hard to solve it.
I know you were trying your hand at solving it.
Yeah, I tried. I couldn't do it. Super difficult.
It's kind of half chess, half logic. And I know lots of programmers or lots of people who work in different spheres where you have to problem solve on a day-to-day basis. I think you can use some of the skills here. And yeah, I think it's almost as if Magnus is trying to solve this puzzle. He looks so confused.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's one of those days today. We're expecting lots of brilliant chess on the board, and that is a brilliant puzzle. So I'm hoping some of you do try your hand.
Would Magnus solve it immediately if we just showed him this puzzle? Or would he need time to think?
He would need a bit of time. I remember, I think it was earlier this year, I gave a puzzle. We took some of the players when they were in Oslo down to the good night, and I gave Mamadjarov, I gave Anish Giri, Erik Hansen, and Jordan van Vriest maybe one of the other kind of toughest mate in 2 puzzles that I've ever seen. And it took me maybe 5-10 minutes to solve it, that one, and I showed it to them. Anish Giri, within 30 seconds, he was up there showing off the answer, but the others were still struggling to understand, even after he'd shown the answer. So, yeah, I mean, these guys are good, they're geniuses, but even they need a bit of time sometimes.
Yeah. And after a bit of time, 4 minutes, we do see a move from Mamadjarov.
Yeah, and those 2 white knights were too beautiful to allow to live. So Mamadjarov has captured one of them, traded it off the board, but he's also allowed a kind of invader, an intruder in the black camp. Look at that white b-pawn now. Are you surprised, Jovanka, that white took back with the pawn? This white pawn now on b5 is either very strong or it's very weak.
I'm not especially surprised that he took back with the pawn because there is that danger if the knight had hopped to the b5 square, it could be offside because the action is happening in the center. It's all about restraining that pawn mass. And I think it's a good idea from white to open up some lines for the rook.
Yeah, the benefit is actually keeping this rook on a1. You haven't moved it, but it's suddenly become active. That's why we always nowadays become accustomed to these players kind of pushing their pawns just like Magnus did in this position. And you don't always have to swing your rook across the board in order to get it active like this. Often you can just activate it without even moving it, and that's what Magnus has done in the current position if we go back to it. Yeah, I would have been very tempted, I think, to take with a knight, just plant it on this outpost that we talked about. It can nearly never be removed from this square, but Magnus is more keen. He feels it's a more urgent priority to activate his rook. And also now, for the first time, maybe we can talk about long-term factors. This is the only real pass pawn in the game. There is one on d5 for black, but it is well blockaded. So actually, long-term, if material starts to disappear, this could be a real trump card up Magnus's sleeve. Meanwhile, Mamadjarov moves his rook. Big threat on the board. We talked about the pawns versus the piece. It's essentially these pawns against one of white's minor pieces, and they're getting ready to mobilize. By shifting his rook across, he's threatening to start pushing. And if he can start pushing pawns, momentum will turn in black's favor. The evaluation bar doesn't like it, though.
It did go up for Magnus after that move.
Yeah, and often if we do see the evaluation bar swing sides, switch sides here, switch allegiances, it will be because of tactics and direct tricks. I don't see anything right now for Magnus. You kind of want to stop this pawn moving forward, but I don't think you should kind of weaken your own position by pushing your own pawns here. This would stop black pushing, but now you weaken yourself, your king's diagonal. There might be some weaknesses here long term. Knowing my luck, this is what Magnus will play now. But I think, first of all, you want to look at threats. It's the same in puzzles, like we said with that mate in 2 puzzle, for example. You want to look at threats, first of all. This is maybe a threatening move, hitting the black queen. You could maybe consider bringing this bishop out to a variety of squares. You have to be careful if you put it on a square like this one. Yes, you stop the pawn moving, or do you? Because suddenly, after you capture it, you're in an eternal pin. So this is, all of these ideas the players are looking at right now, and it's complicated. The price of one move is extremely high. That's the type of chess Mamedyarov plays. If the opponent makes one slip, often things turn against them. And, OK, Magnus, I'm surprised he played quite quickly there after just a minute or two of thought. He pushed his pawn forward. There were so many options. The idea is to force black to commit. If black takes this pawn, then lines are opening up, and that will favour white's pieces rather than the pawns. Although, even now, it does look a bit scary that these pawns are running. And the alternative for black is to move forward. And this would create a protected passed pawn, 2 squares away from promotion. Long term, it's great, but short term, it's not really going anywhere. The square in front of it is well blockaded by white's queen and by white's knight. So do you block it? Do you open it? Maybe Mamedyarov style more to open it. What do you think, Jovanka?
Yeah, it's a difficult choice for Mamedyarov. My vibe is actually to capture the pawn, because I'm slightly afraid that if the pawn does march forward, which is the most aesthetically pleasing move, the pawn won't get any further, and suddenly all of black's pawns on the left, the 3 pawns, they cannot move. And I'm afraid that the A pawn will be a target.
Yeah, this is actually quite a serious target long term. Black's rook in the corner might have to remain passive defending it. So yeah, blocking it up, normally that's what you want to do, and that's why it's such a difficult decision for Mamedyarov. That's why he's spending a minute or so here, because normally you want to kind of push, gain space, create that thorn in white's side long term. But here, I think it was a wise decision for him to capture. At least now, if you compare, he does have 2 protected, connected passed pawns.
And I just took a look at the computer assessment. This was the only way to survive in the position. Already, Mamedyarov was treading that tightrope. And pawn takes pawn, definitely the best solution. And it's primarily because the black pawns maintain their flexibility.
Yeah, now you can make an argument for pushing this guy forward immediately, trying to run down the board. Or I guess you could try to start rounding up white's pawn. Not sure how you go for it immediately. It is well defended for now. Also, I'm making maybe a mistaken assumption here that white is actually, after pawn takes pawn, going to recapture. Magnus has paused. Is he looking for something other than this? It looks almost suicidal at this moment to leave these pawns alive.
Do you think he's going to jump forward with the knight and try to attack the base of the pawn chain, the A5 pawn?
Yeah, so you gain time against the queen, you hit that, and if you can win the A5 pawn, that's a very good start. I think the problem for black here is, where's the queen going to go? There's no safe squares along this diagonal, actually, because if you plant the queen on this square, you get hit by white's bishop. And likewise, if you plant the queen on this square, you will get hit by the white bishop as well. You lose time. Oof, if Magnus plays that move, he's got... I mean, he's in a brave, brave mood today. So this is the current position. Sorry, this one. And I'm expecting him just to keep things simple. But no, wow, Magnus just blocking the pawns. I mean, rooks are not good blockaders, that's got to be said. But this is really creative. His idea is that this pawn is not running away. He's going to take it at leisure, at will, and then this pawn behind, the A5 pawn, is fixed in its place. I mean, how do you come up with a move like that? That would not be on my radar at all. This is what separates the top 10 players in the world from the rest of us. It's just so creative. And it looks pretty decent. The evaluation bar still likes white.
And suddenly, when Magnus plays it, it all makes sense as well. You're like, of course. You absolutely do not need to capture the pawn. Instead, restrain the pawns. That is, after all, what good old Nimzovich, an old classical author, wrote. You know, you should restrain those passed pawns, stop them from advancing. Yeah, makes perfect sense. But it's so interesting how Magnus is able just to recall those rules at will and just not forget about things in the heat of the calculation and battle.
Yeah, that's what they say. They say block, surround, target and capture. And that's going to happen to the black pawns, most likely.
Yeah, and it definitely has Magnus thinking. I hope you guys at home are thinking about our very cool chess puzzle. I sent it to Tanya as well for her to test it on the people in San Francisco. Are you guys solving the puzzle, Tanya?
Kaja, the moment we got that email, we knew we had to solve that puzzle. The chess player in me has taken over. We've got a bunch of chess players here with us, actually, including one of the top players from the United States. We've got Carissa Yip here with us. We've got Bryce, who is 2,500, Robbie as well, Bharat, and I've got the puzzle set up. It's a white to play mate in two. This is our puzzle for the viewers today. We've got a little competition going on to see who gets it right. So let's take a look. All right, guys, so white to play, mate in two. Your timer starts now. I'm trying it as well. Bharat has an answer already. Bharat, are you sure? All right, let's see. What is it? That's a check. And then that is a wrong one. So let's just put it back. One more shot. Guys, this one's really tough. While we've got a bunch of really strong players trying this out, all the best to our viewers with this puzzle. We'll be back with the answer.
It's a really tough one.
It is a tough one, and
Yeah.
I can see some people have tried their luck on Twitter, sending us what they think is the answer. And I can just tell everyone, you got it wrong.
Oh.
No one has got it right so far. So carry on working at it.
Yeah, and take a picture of the screen right now. This is the puzzle. White to play, mate in two. Take a picture so you can show it to your friends and family and work on it throughout today's show. Cool, they haven't been able to solve it in San Francisco. Can you guys at home solve it? And Magnus, he did make a move. Okay, we have some moves on the board.
Yeah, both sides have made a move. Black's knight has rerouted itself, and Magnus has taken the opportunity, after Black's knight moved, to go and capture the first black pawn. We advocated for this earlier, White's knight stepping back, and that has happened. So now the material balance, yet again, is a knight or a piece for 3 pawns, so level material. But Black's pawns are all blocked. It's hard to move any of them right now. I mean, those 2 on the queen side blocked, Black's 2 central pawns, it's not safe to move them. It looks like Magnus has asserted control. And, yeah, the evaluation bar still says it's in the balance, but it does feel like the stakes are higher for Magnus.
Oh, and I have to say, once again, according to the computer, there's only one move that will maintain the balance. Everything else will give White a huge advantage, probably almost winning as well. And that is Black has to mobilize the knight. He has to put it towards the center and actually deposit it on the c4 square.
OK, so that's not 100% obvious. It makes a lot of sense, again, once you've said it. But first of all, you would look at pushing pawns, you would look at maybe developing the black queen. Let's show this one move. Look at the clock times as well, down to 4.5 minutes. This is how difficult it is for Magnus. He's walking a tightrope already. The key move, as Jovanka mentions, is this one, bringing the knight into the centre. It's easy to look the other direction. For example, you could bring the knight to attack the white rook. This doesn't work because white's rook could now take a pawn. Black's queen no longer defends this pawn, so this you can kind of rule this one out quite quickly. But Magnus, will he find the key idea, the whole concept? As Jovanka mentions, is when this knight is attacked, or at some point it will plant itself on a nice outpost. It doesn't look like maybe the most secure outpost, but it's strong enough for now. And there will be threats, for example, of jumping in, forking the 2 white rooks. So this is the key. If he doesn't find this knight jump, it's going to be all about Magnus and his extra pieces. The black pawns will be less relevant. Yeah. 3 minutes now. Can he find it? He's down 8 minutes on the clock, Mamedyarov.
Yeah. I was just going to say the big problem for Mamedyarov is if he does not find this move, then the white forces are just going to swing themselves over to the A line, and the pawn on A5 is indefensible. So There's only one move. The timing is now. He has to play it.
Yeah, he has to play it, and actually the logic is here. Essentially, when white slides over to attack this pawn, your knight is just in time to come and defend it. And yeah, you hold everything together and the game goes on. The balance is maintained. But this is what I mean about kind of taking your opponent into that deep, dark forest. Often they only have that one move every time, otherwise the evaluation swings. If they find it, they have a good position, as Mamedyarov would here, but it's so difficult when every turn you're being forced to be so accurate. You can't just rely on instinct in a position like this one. You have to calculate, you have to be precise. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would find it, I've got to be honest. But Mamedyarov, I have faith in him. It's just costing him so much time. Spent 4 minutes on this one move, and we're only on move 20. Yeah, that could be decisive later in the game. It looks like starting with the white pieces, it's just a huge, huge benefit in this matchup between these two.
Do you think he will find it? You said you have belief. I'm thinking he's taken a long time. Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to get there.
They do say long think, wrong think, right? So the longer he takes, the less likely he is to find it. But OK, knight to e5, that is the move we're looking for from Mamedyarov. Anything else? And white is in control.
And he's ticking under 2 minutes after 20 moves. Magnus still has more than 11 minutes on the clock. Even if he finds this move, this is going to be dramatic.
And this won't be the last time in the game that he's got a narrow path to find Mamedyarov. There will be future moments, critical, even more critical than this perhaps, where he has to find only moves. And how can you do that with 1 minute against 11?
And also against this happy chappy. I mean, he looks like he's in full control. He's perfectly satisfied with his pieces, and he doesn't find it.
No, he did some calculation here, and OK, we see a bunch of quick moves, a bunch of exchanges. So he's relying upon this variation, Mamedyarov. He calculated it, but it doesn't work for black. So right now, both queens are attacked. White's knight could have taken the black queen, but white's queen would have fallen to the black knight. So both queens had to run out of the attacks. And the reason this has not been a good transition for Mamedyarov is simply he's lost a pawn. And you're running out of pawns. So now white has an extra piece, an extra bishop, for only 2 pawns. That is quite a significant advantage. And there is a couple of threats on the board. Black's knight is attacking white's rook. Black's queen is attacking a pawn. But Magnus can just safely move his rook out the way, I feel. And yeah, there are other pawns ripe for picking. White's knight is going to retreat and take the black pawn on b4 at some point. Everything's just starting to collapse.
Wow. Totally is.
And this looks like he's digging this position. And it looks like it's a great start to the day for actually all the players in San Francisco. The bar is way over to Wesley So's side in game 1 against Arjun Erigaisi. Wesley, who has lost both matches so far, it looks like he's going to get a great start against Arjun on day 3. And in the game between Duda, sitting in Poland, against Giri, sitting in San Francisco, I think the bar is slightly over to Anish Giri's side. This is a battle between 2 players who have won both of the first matches, Giri in tie breaks. And then Pragnananda, who had a horrible day yesterday. He won the first 2 games against Giri, but then lost the match in blitz tie breaks. But here on day 3, first game against Liam Le, the bar is way over to his side. Really looks like the atmosphere is good in San Francisco today.
Yeah, it feels like the players, they're getting in their groove. They're starting to motor now after, yeah, a bit of a slow start, especially from Wesley and Prag. But I'm looking over those positions, especially for Prag. It's such, it's such incredible bounce-back ability, as we say in sport, just to turn it around after yesterday, which was really heartbreaking, we've got to say. Losing, what was it, 3 games in a row yesterday, Prag, when he was on the brink of victory. And already he's dominant in that first game against Liam Le. Magnus, meanwhile, yeah, he's just nodding. He's got boss mode on right now, swigging that water. It just looks very good. Now, under 1 minute as well from Mamedyarov. He's 10.5 minutes down on the clock. And he's down on the board as well, material. It looks one-sided traffic now. And it just turned on that one move, that one moment, that knight jump, which direction to go with the knight, centralize the knight or go off to the side. And I think that's one pitfall that I've fallen for thousands of times in my life. A lot of players do. We try to calculate in a position where we should just be improving our pieces. Black's best move was to just improve his knight. He calculated, but 3-4 moves down the line, he's starting to shake his head. he's just a pawn down, and it's going to be more.
He's under 30 seconds, and this is the problem with chaotic positions. You know, you have to either calculate or, as David says, just take those simple decisions to improve your pieces. And the problem here for Shaq is just simply a piece down. And after knight takes pawn, oh, can you? No! I fell for that trap there. You cannot capture the pawn because Shaq is relying on the bishop swooping into the c3 square, attacking the rook and the knight.
Yeah, it gets really complicated actually here. Magnus is doing some calculation. He can take two different pawns, but one you have to do a lot of calculation. The other one I think you can play quite safely. And like you said, Jovanka, the first natural one is to take this pawn. It looks very dangerous, but you have to do some calculation after the bishop swoops in to attack the rook and attack the knight. And here there are tricks. I'm trying to work it out. I'm not sure of the evaluation, but if white's knight, OK, he's taken the other pawn, but white's knight could, for example, have taken here. There's a pin along this line, and we do some calculation. This is capture, this is a check. And at the end, if black's king takes this knight, there might have been a fork. So maybe this was possible. But Magnus decided, OK, this was too long a variation, 5 or 6 moves deep. Why not keep things simple and take another pawn instead? Bishop takes pawn, and again, this utilizes a pin on the e-file. Black's pawn cannot go and take this bishop because of rook takes rook. Whoops, not rook there. Rook takes rook with a check. So, yeah, Magnus taking a pawn back, utilizing this pin. The rook was attacked now. You just maintain the tension on the e-file, and black's king moves. So right now, white has an extra bishop for just 2 pawns. The 2 pawns are, at least for now, blockaded. And, OK, Magnus takes a step back, and he's going to take another step back with his bishop just to make sure that this pawn never, ever advances. It should still be good for Magnus. Still some work to be done?
Definitely some work to be done. I mean, it's not easy at all. And he retreated his bishop to a different square. I didn't expect that one. I thought he would keep an eye on the passed pawn, and instead deciding that the knight is the best blockader for that piece. The big problem for Magnus, though, is that if black were just simply just to hold tight, it's not necessarily that clear on how white is going to round up the renegade pawn on b4.
Yeah, that's true. You can blockade this pawn, which Magnus will most likely do right now or on the next turn. But once you blockade it, yeah, it still takes a lot of work, maybe 10, 15 moves to even try and threaten this pawn. OK, Magnus, this is a very Magnus type of move, just improving his king instead. But the pawns are starting to roll for Mamedyarov. He wants to start advancing this pawn as well. I'm expecting Magnus at some point as well to take a timeout, maybe just to block the advance of black's central pawn. So this pawn might be blocked if white pushes the pawn to f3, and this pawn will be blocked as well. It is winning. We know it's winning. These two players know it's winning, but it does take time. And we have seen Magnus occasionally slip up throughout the tour this season. It's normally when he relaxes a bit too early.
Yeah, but here I think he will be on point. I think this is the type of position where you have to keep your vigilance, because one slip up and suddenly the black pieces will become active, and the passed b pawn is very, very dangerous. Yeah. So definitely work to be done. I'm predicting that, like you say, restrain the pawn, then the knight retreats backwards. Some pieces get improved.
Yeah, block this pawn, and I mean, the clock time is the other main significant factor right now. It's going to be so hard for Mamedyarov with 1 minute left to find any defensive resources or to even seize an opportunity, even if Magnus gives him one. How do you calculate your way out of trouble with only 1 minute left? It's looking very good for white, and we might say that a lot today. Looking good for white, especially between these two players. And stylistically as well, Mamedyarov, he can get the type of positions he wants when he has the white pieces. He can play on the front foot from move 1. In this game, he never really got there. He played that really, really dramatic, controversial piece sacrifice for 3 pawns. I'll still call it a sacrifice, but it hasn't really paid off. If queens are on the board, it might be a different situation. But right now, without queens, we can see Mamedyarov's pain.
Oh, yeah. So frustrated.
Yeah, the problem also, OK, not only is he material down, he will have to calculate what is going to happen after every piece trade. You know, is it possible for white to trade off bishops? Is it possible to trade off rooks? Is it going to be good for him? Chances are he cannot trade a single piece. And there you see he is suffering, and Magnus just improves his rook. He's getting ready to trade off the dark square bishops.
Yeah,
And he has to remember Mamadjaro. He's probably going to lose with the black pieces in all the games today, but he's probably also going to win with the white pieces.
Yeah, there's no reason to lose hope. He's still got 2 whites today in the rapid section. Maybe we'll have a few more whites as well.
But wait 1 second. If everyone wins with the whites, okay,
then Armageddon.
Then yeah.
Magnus, as the leader in the tour standings, can choose colours in the Armageddon. He would choose white.
But that means if everyone is going to win with the white pieces, then Shaq has to win in the next round. It's decided.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Black's king coming towards the centre, but this isn't really going to help. There's too many pieces left on the board for the kings to play a major role right now. And white, as expected, does just drop back and blockade. Shaq is trying to push pawns. Fair play to him. There is a saying that if you're down on pawns, you should exchange pieces. If you're down on pieces, which Shaq is here, you should try and exchange pawns. So even if Black's pawns on this side, even if they advance and trade off, that could give some saving chances.
It's over.
Wow, Shaq just resigns? OK, it was losing, but that feels premature. An early resignation from Shaq with white's rook about to get active.
Massive win for Magnus Carlsen in 34 minutes. He wins game 1 with the white pieces against Shakhriyar Mamadjaro to take the lead in the match. He now has 25 minutes to get ready for game 2, so will he stop for a comment with Tanya?
Magnus, a quick win, wild game. What happened there?
Yeah, I went for piece sack, which is one of the better lines that Black has in this system. I didn't really remember what to do, and this is also generally not the kind of position where you should be aiming. You should be going by general knowledge because the position is very concrete. But I think he made a mistake fairly quickly with bishop b5. Maybe that was okay, but he has to follow it up concretely. Otherwise, like after b3, I felt I was already much better. Funnily, this game was pretty similar to the one I had against him, Sierra and Vaikonze, where he also sacrificed, well, an exchange that time for this pawn mass on the queen side, but managed to wrap that one up as well. And to be fair, even in the ending, he has had some drawing chances, but I thought his last move was bad. As soon as I get to activate my rook, then it should be easy, because I have a formidable force there with 2 bishops and a rook. So if he had occupied the file, there would still have been a lot of work to do.
You said you didn't remember the opening, yet you kept up the speed. How did you manage that in this crazy position?
No, I thought let's just go by feeling, because I'm not going to figure it out anyway. And I remember that knight b5 and then a4 was an idea, at least. And there are some like crazy lines where Black is a full rook down, but completely fine, and some lines White gets to sacrifice material back and it's equal. Yeah, it's. I mean, I didn't really mind going for it because it's a fun line, and as long as he doesn't have a lot of knowledge, then I should be fine.
All right, good luck for the next one.
How cool to hear. Magnus Carlsen had fun playing this game, and it was a fantastic start to the day, David. What happened here?
Yeah, Magnus had a lot of fun playing the game, but he also had a lot of knowledge, which he was sharing with us. That's very generous of the world champion, and I'm sure his future opponents will be paying attention to this opening, because it did get very sharp, very complicated early on, and this was the moment where we saw Shaq have a long think, and he did make a critical mistake. It's all about improving the black pieces. The knight needs to be improved first of all, and the other secondary priority is to protect this pawn. So Black, as we mentioned earlier, should have centralized this knight, getting ready to bring it to the c4 square. A nice outpost. It's hard to kick the knight away from the square, and it does protect Alice, the a-pawn. But he went the wrong direction with his knight, Shakhriyar, and this is one of the mistakes that Magnus mentioned. He brought his knight to this square. He had calculated the variation, giving up the a-pawn. Magnus took it happily, and now the black knight jumping forward, but he'd miscalculated that in this position, after the white knight attacks the black queen, yes, Black can counterattack against the white queen, but Magnus doesn't have to react. He can just simply move the queen out of danger. No captures are obligatory there, and the problem for Black is the queen is attacked. There's no time to take White's rook, and when Black's queen moved out the way, White's rook moved, and as we saw, White now has an extra piece for only 2 pawns. It wasn't sufficient compensation for Mamadjaro, and he actually resigned pretty soon after this.
fantastic game. And in a little over 20 minutes, Mamadou will have the white pieces in game 2. Game 1 still going on between Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi. And is Wesley So finally getting his first game win in the tour finals?
It's looking good, but some hard work to be done.
Okay.
Black's pieces are starting to gather around that white king. If we do a quick material count, it's actually level pieces, level pawns on the board. But the reason the computer likes white so much is, firstly, 2 bishops, control over really important squares. Black's attack is actually more of an illusion, if anything, and also white's b5 pawn is the only passed pawn in the position, and that's going to start running. Jovanka, you surprised that the computer gives such a huge advantage for white despite level material?
No, I'm not surprised that the computer is giving such a massive advantage, because computers are just chill. You know, they don't care about attacks. But as a human, I can tell you, I would not be so confident. I would be definitely on a red alert, just watching the white king, making sure that it's protected. Because, like you say, that b pawn, that's a long-term trump.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Erigaisi is playing the move that all top chess players play nowadays. If they want to just make the position messy, if they want to scare the opponent, they push the h-pawn forward. And, OK, Wesley, he's trying to say it's not just long-term, it's also short-term. That white b-pawn only 2 squares away from promotion now. The black rooks can blockade, but they will be tied down if they go in front of this white pawn. And they'll be unable to participate in any potential attack. If you look at white's pieces, the white king looks like it's a bit lonely over there, but along the second rank, the white queen actually defends the key g2 point. And black's queen and knight alone, that duo, yes, they're a fearsome attacking duo, but right now, they're just not creating anything. They need to kind of, they need some support, some backup.
Yeah. And all the meanwhile, he's moved his rook 1 square, just keeping an eye on the passed b-pawn. I predict that the h-pawn probably has to march up the board as far as it can go. And try to get some weakness or some hint of a weakness somewhere. Because sometimes what you need is ghosts. You need your opponent to be afraid of something and start contorting, making bad decisions.
Yeah, it feels like Wesley is slightly afraid, at least, of some attack against the white king, because look at the clock times. Wesley's down at 40 seconds. He spent a long time since we jumped into this game. And I can understand. The white king, yeah, it is a bit of a target. And Wesley's another one of those types of players. He fits the mold of someone who doesn't really want to be attacked. He wants a risk-free advantage. And this is an advantage for white. We're not debating that, but it's not risk-free. If you abandon your king, you might get checkmated. If black can whip up some kind of storm against it, create some weaknesses, as he's trying to do, as you mentioned, Jovanka, with this h-pawn advance, then suddenly things are less simple. And you don't really want to go and capture this black knight with white start-squared bishop, because that would only open up black start-squared bishop potentially. And, OK, he's inviting some sacrifices. Ooh. This looks risky. Black's knight could take this pawn. Black's queen could move. He's playing with fire suddenly, Wesley So.
Yeah, and just saw the evaluation bar suddenly shift itself towards the centre. I mean, the first move that jumps out is sacrifice the knight. Take that pawn and give some checks to the king.
Yeah.
But you do have to remember that sacrifice pieces don't have to be captured.
Yeah, they don't have to be captured. And also, some concrete calculation is required. Erigaisi suddenly leaning forward, looking excited. Here, there is a rule of thumb. Don't touch pawns in front of your king, especially when you're being attacked. It only creates weaknesses. As you mentioned, knight takes pawn looks so tempting. But after the knight is recaptured, we have to do some calculation. There's maybe this check. If the pawn is captured, however, white's queen can swing across to the defense. And suddenly, after queen takes bishop, what's happening here? This is a check. Black's king has nowhere to run. This can be blocked by black's bishop, but it gets incredibly complicated. I mean, I have no idea of the evaluation here, and he has gone for it. He's played the most tempting move. Like you said, Jovanka, after knight takes pawn, it doesn't necessarily need to be captured. You could make an argument for dropping back with white's bishop, maybe, or you could just ignore this. But what is Wesley So's trick? What is up his sleeve? He's just given up a pawn, and it's all about just distracting the black knight. Now he's trying to force through this pawn by brute force. He's trying to eliminate the blockader. If, for example, the black knight retreats, he's going to eliminate one blockader and then a second blockader. This rook now, because it's pinned, can no longer hold back this white b-pawn. White will make a new queen. So black has to be fast. There's no time to just calmly retreat, for example. What is a fast move? OK, he captures this pawn. He takes it off the board. I'm expecting to see a trade of rooks now. What has Wesley got? He's 2 pawns down. He's got 10 seconds left. Computer still likes his position, but he doesn't trade off rooks. I was going to say maybe exchange off one of Black's defenders of his king. First, he steps into the center, hitting this black rook. Apparently, it might be a mistake.
It looks like a mistake because the rook can just simply return to where it came from. And it feels like Wesley is panicking under the time pressure because he's taking all sorts of strange decisions. He's lost his big asset. The b-pawn disappeared.
I mean, earlier he had pretty much the same position, just with a pawn on this square.
Yeah.
And what is his idea now? Because he's 2 pawns down, and Black's knight, if it gets a chance, will save itself. Arjun might just be 2 pawns up for nothing. Wesley so down to 2-3 seconds. Has he moved? Oh, he made a move with 2 seconds left. He captured this knight, but suddenly, look at this. Black is just going to capture this white bishop.
Could also give a check as well.
Yeah, you could give a check first along the diagonal and only capture this bishop next move. And I think you can get away with either. You can take this bishop, and if white takes this pawn, if you really, really want to play it safe, just retreat with the black queen. Swap the queens off, and only black can win because black has 2 extra pawns. It's opposite colour bishops, but it's Erigaisi now with the chances.
Wow.
Wesley's fighting for his life, fighting for the draw.
In all the other matches, game ones have ended with wins for the player with the white pieces. But do you think it's unlikely that Wesley So will do the same?
It's very unlikely now. There is some hint of an attack against the black king, especially on the light squares if white can give a check now, but black's queen should be able to swoop back and defend at some point. Yeah, it feels like Erigaisi, okay, by giving some checks, he's playing it safe. But yeah, he should be the only one to win this game, if anyone. Maybe Wesley can hold a draw just because there is this opposite colour bishops dynamic.
Ooh, but take a look at that move. He's just moved his king. I would have thought it's so dangerous to leave the queens on the board. And now look at this.
Yeah.
The pawn is moving forward. Black's rook is getting ready to swing to the F line.
You fear for Wesley's life?
I do fear for Wesley. I fear that he's on tilt, actually. He's thinking back to the position that he had, and he's saying, I should have won. And there you can see him shaking his head. Oh, this is such a difficult position. I'm hoping that Wesley just throws in some defensive moves because I'm very worried for the white king.
Wow, talking of defensive moves, he's brought his rook the whole way up. He's just trying to eliminate the rooks, get those off the board. He was too scared that the white king is more open than the black king. But yeah, it's both kings in mating nets, essentially. Neither king is completely safe while queens stay on the board. But by removing the rooks, Wesley has said, OK, no checkmates yet for you, Erigaisi. And OK, the rooks have disappeared. Yeah, black's so close to delivering checkmate, but white's queen from g6 comes and guards some key checking squares. So black can't, for example, use his queen to checkmate yet. Black's bishop is not participating in the attack, which means Erigaisi might not be able to give any decisive checks here. OK, Erigaisi bails out to a draw. He was too worried there. It was just too chaotic, too double-edged. And by taking the queens off the board, opposite colour bishops, black's extra pawn doesn't matter.
I think it was a sensible decision, especially with the clock ticking down and the position threatening to get so wild. It's totally fair, and the players have agreed a draw.
Oh, it was looking so good for Wesley So with the white pieces in game one here. But he still hasn't won a single game in the tour finals. Not in his best shape yet in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022. This is his debut this season, but he had a massive performance in the 2021 season. Looking over the other games, all of them ended with a win for the white player, but in this one, it was a draw. Will we hear from Wesley So in San Francisco?
Wesley, it looked like a really dominating game from your side, but then something went wrong. What happened?
Yeah, I couldn't find knockout blow. I mean, I was better pretty much the whole game, and I have a pass pawn. But I allowed him some counterplay on the king side, which shouldn't lead to anything. But I couldn't find a win. There's got to be a win there somewhere. In the end, I was fortunate enough not to lose because he sacrificed a piece. And it very nearly worked. Like, I missed rook bb8 in the end. Maybe rook takes f8 was much better. But it's not winning. Yeah, I'm not sure what went wrong. But I got really low on time. That's also a problem. Like, I always think that this is a long game because you have 10-second increment. And then it is a long game, but at the same time, you have to make some moves here and there.
It's easy to get fooled by the 10-second increment.
Yeah, that's true. I always think I'd never run out of time, but like today I had maybe 4 seconds at some point. The other day I had 1 second at some point. It's easy to fall asleep. Yeah, but you know, I think the result is pretty fair.
All right, well, 3 more games to go. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He was in some huge time trouble there, Wesley, so it ends with a draw. Oh, he had some great winning positions, though, but still 3 more games to go in his match against Arjun Erigaisi, heading back to his lounge. 12 more minutes until game 2. He will have the black pieces. But with the white pieces here, what happened, David? Where did he lose his chances to win the game?
Yeah, it feels like we jinxed Wesley in a way, because when we joined the game not long just before the position we'll see in a moment, Wesley was in charge. Wesley had white here. We talked about the B-pawn being so dangerous, both short-term and long-term. But here, he let things slip by following a really kind of typical, very natural mistake that a lot of chess players make, touching pawns in front of your own king when you're being attacked. Often it's best just to keep this formation, keep the perfect shelter in front of your king. And for example here, there are many strong moves, but white could have simply brought his rook across to the defense. Bringing the white queen across as well would have been strong. And if black now tries to provoke a weakness by pushing the black pawn forward, we can just eliminate an attacker. And for example, in a position like this one, there's no real threats on the board. You can even lift your rook up. And even if the queens disappear, white is in charge, because remember, this B-pawn is long-term going to win the game. It ties down black's rook forever. So Wesley, just by bringing pieces into the defense, would have won this game. But the mistake, the very instructive mistake that he made, that a lot of you would have been tempted, I would have been tempted as well, it was to push this pawn forward. And the reason was a simple knight capture, a knight sacrifice, and if this knight was captured, then a check, hitting the white bishop, and the game had already started to turn. Wesley, in the end, saved a draw. He was a bit lucky there, but really fascinating battle.
Magnus Carlsen won game 1 with the white pieces, but he will have the black pieces against Shakhriyar and Mamedyarov in 10 minutes. Game 2 in their exciting match. And Mamedyarov, he always plays to entertain, and that is exactly what he has done this season on the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour.
Okay, he gives up his queen, Mamedyarov.
Oh, wow. We have a comeback, you guys. Mamedyarov, he does it without the queen.
Mamedyarov, he's just trying to create chaos. These guys are maniacs.
He's gone for it, of course. Shaq.
It's Shakhriyar Mamedyarov sacrificing. Shaq is just so inspired today. Shaq, attack. That's his phrase.
It is in the bag for Shakhriyar.
Wow, he sacrificed his queen. He didn't even think. Amazing checkmate there from Mamedyarov.
He resigns. He offers a handshake to the great Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, who played just some fantastic chess today. It's over. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov makes it to the big final of AIM Chess Rapid. What a performance by the 37-year-old from Azerbaijan. He's had a great season, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Now he needs to make a comeback. He will have the white pieces in game 2 against world number 1, Magnus Carlsen. We're going to build up to that big game after a commercial break.
I saw her for the first time, it was love at first sight. I love how rich and complex she is, how sharp and principled her first steps, how graceful her movement. Paris is a city of love. I've come to find my love for the French defense.
I love sports, so that's how I train. I do football, I've started playing paddle recently. I also do some exercises with a personal trainer, but he always tries to make it about competition because that is what motivates me. I do not know if it's essential to be in good shape to be a good player, but I know that I play a lot better when I do feel well and that I'm at my best physically, for sure.
Welcome back to day 3 in the Tour. Finals, we're waiting for game 2 between Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus, he's already secured his victory overall in the Tour. It's been a fantastic season for the world number 1. Many, many highlights, but one moment sticks out for Magnus Carlsen.
I feel like for me it's hard to escape the Julius Baer Generations Cup where I made 12 out of 15 in the preliminaries and then basically won quite comfortably in the knockouts as well.
I'm really not expecting Le Bon to last too much longer.
My play was generally just flowing really, really well, and yeah, I mean, that was the clear highlight of the Tour so far.
2 threats and the White King is doomed.
Wow, Magnus Carlsen is up by 2 points now.
I think I just found the flow pretty quickly, and there was a stark contrast there to some of the other tournaments where I could just never get it going, yeah, sometimes I just get that feeling early that I have it, I'm feeling well, and then, yeah, I just go.
He's going to win the tournament.
Wow. And there it is. It's over. Arjun Erigaisi resigns, facing an impossible world number 1, Magnus Carlsen. And it's been impossible so far in San Francisco today as well. Magnus Carlsen winning game 1 in spectacular fashion against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Enjoying his time probably in this beautiful city on the US West Coast. 4 players on site in San Francisco, and so is our reporter Tanya. What's going on in Shack 15 right now, Tanya?
A lot of fun. We're waiting for the players to come back for the game 2. You got a bunch of chess players here today who are playing a lot of Blitz and Bug House, so that's always fun to watch. We also did try to solve the puzzle today. What's really interesting is always to watch the players come in from their resting area onto the playing arena, because it's a little bit of a walk and you can feel the tension, you know, you can feel the reverberations from the previous round. Wesley was here for the interview and you could tell that it is a little frustrating for him to get all these positions during day 1, day 2, but not being able to convert it. Magnus looks like he's in great mood, great form with the way things are going. So that's always interesting to watch the little walk that they have. Some of them just go straight past after their game. If they're frustrated, you can really tell that things are heating up here at Shack 15.
It must be so much fun to be there on site with these 4 players. And it's been a good start for a couple of them. Magnus Carlsen winning game 1 against Mamdjarov, and Pragnananda winning game 1 against Liam Lam. Eventually though, Anish Giri, he lost game 1 to Jan-Krzysztof Duda and will have to make a comeback in that match, but that is exactly what he did yesterday. He made a huge comeback against Prag to win that match. It was a draw between Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi, but Prag, he won first game, and let's hear from the young Indian.
Prag, a really nice, smooth win. It looks like you've left day 2 far behind.
Yeah, I kind of recovered from day 2, but okay, this game I think I played quite well. And yeah, but still 3 more games. I have to focus on the important 3 games.
I want to ask you, it looked like a normal opening, but then things went very wrong for Liam super quick. What went wrong?
I don't know, like somehow I got this knight g5, knight h5 idea very quickly. Maybe his queen a5 was not so accurate because his queen was doing his job on a3 and controlling c1 and also tying down my a1 rook. So I don't know, maybe queen a5 itself is wrong because I got this knight g5, knight h5 idea, and it's not easy to defend that position.
A total nightmare then, and all the best for the remaining rounds.
This is a rare image. Magnus Carlsen, the first one to arrive the arena, ready for game 2 with the black pieces against Shakhriyar Mamdjarov. What should we expect from the opening in this game, Jovanka, when Mamdjarov has the white pieces and also needs to make a comeback after losing?
Yeah, well, Mamdjarov has a very unusual opening style. He tends to start off in something that looks like it's very quiet, it's very harmless, and then before you know it, there's fire on the board. You'll have to bring your tactical A game to just cope with the pieces that Mamdjarov will manage to activate or maybe even throw at your king. So definitely, Magnus will be on point here. Yeah. He has to be on high alert.
They're both ready. Mamdjarov, we are expecting fireworks, although we have seen some calmer stuff from him over the last few days.
That's right, but normally Mamdjarov's calmer chess comes against the youngsters because that's anti-young player chess. We've heard that phrase. Against the younger players, often you want to just make the game very slow so they can't show off their stuff. And I think the good thing for Mamdjarov is he doesn't have to change his normal style in this matchup. He can just play his normal chess because that leads to chaos anyway. And in a must-win situation, or almost must-win at this point, yeah, why not just stick to your normal openings? And Magnus chooses the Slav defense. The Slav defense has scored very badly, actually, throughout the tour. That's one thing we've noticed looking at the statistics. And, OK, just playing the triangle.
I am. And Shaq actually not playing his beloved G3 move. He likes to fianchetto the bishop. And instead, we have something very mainstream. And it's a very solid position that black has. This is a difficult nut to crack. I've been studying this for a long time, and I don't find an advantage for white at all.
Yeah, Magnus looks a bit confused. He's kind of looking around. He's like frowning slightly. What is going on? But I think that's just because white's bishop move is not the most common. Normally, white's bishop, if it wants to move, moves 2 squares, or the white queen shuffles across 1 square.
Yeah, having said that, it's a very trendy line, and it was recently recommended by Sam Shankland in his opening repertoire course. And the whole idea is that if black were to capture the pawn on c4, white is not obliged to take it with the bishop. You can take the time out to make some other moves.
Yeah, so I mean, if Sam Shankland's recommended it, then all of the top players will have taken note. He's renowned as an opening expert. So, OK, Mamdjarov is the first to have surprised Magnus Carlsen. That's a big gain. That's, again, a positive of the white pieces in chess at all levels, but especially at the top level, where the surprise factor is so vital. The top players, they're so good, they often neutralise each other, cancel each other out, unless you can cause a big surprise in the opening. And looks like Magnus is the first to think. I'm expecting black's dark square bishop to move, black to try and castle as quickly as possible, but obviously very flexible. Lots of tempting options at this point. And Mamdjarov, yeah, I think the one thing he needs to change and improve on the last game is his clock usage. That was his real downfall. The position was tough in the last game. It was really hard to navigate, but if you have 1 minute left, story of my life. When you have 1 minute left on the clock, things fall apart on the board, especially against the top players who will, they're sharks. They will target you. They'll smell that blood in the water.
I would like to say that happens to most people except my co-host David, who actually plays fantastic chess with seconds left on the clock.
I'm getting older. It's harder to manage.
A little birdie told me that in the Norwegian league, you left it with 1 second on the clock.
That's again, story of my life.
Riding on the edge. And Magnus actually reacting in a slightly unconventional way. I mean, it's slightly unconventional because normally Black is actually developing the dark square bishop. But this is all normal as long as the dark square bishop actually develops 2 squares forward.
And Mamedyarov playing some very trendy ideas here, moving the A pawn forward. That's partly aimed at clamping down so Black can't push any pawns on that left flank, but also, if given the time, there is the opportunity maybe to push the white A pawn even further. There is a clear target, Black's light squared bishop. If that white A pawn steps once and then again, that Black bishop will be kicked home. And White is ahead in development, remember. White is the first to have castled. So Magnus may be facing some early questions. Black is still rock solid, though. And I don't know if I should confess this, but I once had a conversation with Magnus on a train, and I was like, oh, my openings are so bad. I have nothing against 1d4. And he was like, just wing it. Just play this setup and just freestyle. And he was like, oh, you can't really go that wrong. So he's actually putting his money where his mouth is, and he's following his own advice, playing this opening setup as Black.
Yeah, I kind of, again, I would nearly agree with that statement. I would say you can't nearly go wrong, but you have to have an answer to the breakthrough, White's breakthrough, which would be e3, e4. If you have an answer to that, then you're good. Yeah. And there you see Magnus actually didn't develop his bishop 2 squares forward. He went all the way to b4. And the whole idea is that, yes, it kind of takes advantage of a great square that's now become available, but also it prevents White from breaking out in the center with his desired e3, e4 break.
Yeah, maybe we can show this pawn break, because that will be a theme, quite likely, of the upcoming middle game. So here, Black has just planted his bishop on a nice outpost. If he'd chosen maybe a more logical square or a more traditional square, at least one of these two, as you mentioned, Jovanka, then White may, for example, move the queen. Black may castle. And now this is the key break, opening up the center, opening up this bishop to come to a very active square. And if we do, for example, see a bunch of exchanges in the middle of the board, then you can actually reach this pawn structure from a lot of different openings. But White is supposed to have a small advantage because these two control a lot of space. Black is a bit cramped. Black is solid, but yeah, it's harder to break out. So by planting his bishop on this square, as he has done Magnus, he's made it incredibly difficult for White to play that e4 break that you mentioned, Jovanka. So, OK, Mamedyarov knows that if he ever tries to push this pawn, the knight might be captured, so he gives it some extra protection. Black's bishop undefended as well, so you've got to watch out for some tactics along this diagonal. If the bishop is no longer defended, yeah, I mean, I would be tempted to just move my queen now to protect it, for example.
Yeah, that would be a good advice as well, because otherwise, like you hinted, that knight takes pawn is in the air.
Yeah, knight takes pawn. The whole idea is, yes, you give up your knight, but if it's captured, then Black's bishop will fall. And another key detail is that if the Black bishop captures White's bishop, this knight is in time to save itself with an in-between move, a check, first of all. And when the knight is captured, White regains the bishop and has won a pawn in the process. But Magnus, OK, he's continuing to surprise me, at least, every single move. In this position, he simply captured a pawn. And after it was recaptured, he castled. He's getting ready to break out temporarily. White has more space in the center. White has a small advantage there. But no time, again, to push, because if you push, then the knight will be captured, and the pawn in the middle will no longer be supported. Wow, this is... I'm learning, I must say. This is something I've never really seen before, what Magnus is doing. And it looks like he's got a very healthy position. If White can't push in the center, for example, if White has to move, then Black breaks. This bishop suddenly is a free piece. It's looking down at a great diagonal.
That's the kind of MVP in these positions. If you get that bishop liberated, it's the most amazing thing in the world. In return, white can't really stop that pawn break, so they have to take precautions. They have to actually just prepare for this opening and move the queen to the center, move the rooks to the center, and start asking black, what are you going to do about your queen? Where are you going to where are you going to place her, is what I wanted to say. Yeah. And still, very tense battle. I have to say, I don't think black is like 100% equal. I think white still has like something that we call a niggle. But it's very, very slight, and it could just evaporate within the next few moves.
That's the thing. For example, if we do see the white rook move across, okay, he has chosen this queen move, but I'm assuming Magnus will break out by pushing his pawn. There we go. We have just seen that. For example, a situation like this, if we do see a trade of pawns in the center, it's almost symmetrical now in terms of structure, and that's where it could evaporate, as you mentioned, Jovanka. Things could disappear. If all the pieces get traded off, no way to create any pawn breaks, and it's just very balanced. So I'm expecting Magnus maybe not to rush. Magnus is known for liking to keep the tension, and I'm expecting him maybe just to move his queen out the way. Again, that would be very logical. Almost playing copycat, doing what white did a few moves ago. You never want a queen opposite a rook. So, yeah, you want to move her to safety. Yeah, very tense. Despite the fact that there's still some life left in the position, I do feel that Magnus, he survived the worst, and it's not necessarily a Mamedyarov type of position. Black's king is super safe, and Mamedyarov, he's always trained his eye to look at the opponent's king. He'll be a bit frustrated with the outcome of this opening. Oof. No direct attack?
No direct attack, but still, very interesting position brewing. And whilst Magnus is thinking about what to play, well, we do have an appreciation tweet from Han Solo, who actually earlier on played Magnus because he was the first winner of the NFT. And he says, every chess fan's wildest dreams. Thank you, Champs Chess Tour, for making this happen. Keep building, and I hope to see you guys again in Singapore for a rematch.
Oh, that would be so cool.
That would be very cool.
A tournament in Singapore.
I know, and have it in the Bay Towers, I think it's called.
Marina Bay Sands.
Oh,
Marina Bay Sands.
I've actually been there.
Have you?
I stayed in that hotel one night. It was incredible.
It's on my bucket list. I have a few places in Asia that I would love to go, and Singapore is one of them. And whilst the players are also still thinking, we do have a picture of hang on, let me just get the name, EMGE Mikolai trying to solve the puzzle.
Oh, I want to see that.
And he says, I've got this one. He's not going to post the answer, but again, he's going to repeat David's advice. It's way how you should try to solve it. You got to think outside the box. I see a lot of people suggesting checks, but you don't necessarily have to capture a piece. That's a big hint.
Okay. Keep those pictures coming as well. We want to see how you guys are working on this super duper hard puzzle. Mate in 2.
Yeah,
white to play.
We should show it again because it is so difficult. And
let's bring up that puzzle one more time. And if you have a phone, for example, near you, take a picture of it when it comes up here on the screen. White to play, mate in 2. It's such a difficult puzzle, but it's so much fun to sit together and try to solve it.
Yeah, I see a lot of people just saying that they spent 25 minutes trying to solve it. They abandoned their quantum physics assignment.
Okay, we have some smart people working on it.
We do. And I can say they got that one right. We have a lot of people also confidently suggesting checks. And again, you have to think about all of Black's replies. Don't just go for the most obvious. And remember, mate in 2, white to play, and it's a beautiful one.
Yeah, you need some finesse, you need some sophistication. You can't just do it by brute force. Unfortunately, in this puzzle, it's not the typical puzzle where it's like you give a check, follow up with an easy mate. This one, you need to be very, very sneaky. But yeah, well done to those of you who have solved it already at home without checking an engine.
It's Is it difficult to create these puzzles as well? Do you have like people who are experts on, you know, making crossword puzzles, also making chess puzzles?
Yeah, we call them composers. So this is an endgame study. You compose the study and these various different types of compositions. There are specialized people. I mean, I was recently reading on Twitter that a fellow grandmaster from Poland, he entered the World Chess Problem Solving Championship. And,
wow.
He's won the title, I think, a few times, but even he struggles to solve some of these different types of positions. And often it takes hours, months, days just to come up with these ideas, and it can take just as long to solve them.
But one of my friends, he actually was the world champion in solving problems, and I asked him, you know, which one is easier, solving problems or actually playing chess? And I was surprised by his answer. He said actually solving problems is easier because he says you know there is an answer.
That's true.
And once you've kind of figured out certain solving patterns, things become a lot more standard. But in chess, anything goes. You don't have any help. It's just you and your brain.
Yeah, in chess, we're guessing half the time. We know that 5 or 6 different moves will probably lead to an equal position. We just have to pick one, and we have to try and plan accordingly. But yeah, in puzzles, at least, you know, okay, it's white to play and mate in 2. You know there is a win. It might take you 5 hours to solve, but eventually you'll get there. And yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't take the viewers at home that long, though. Keep studying those assignments. Don't let us distract you too much.
Again, I do love the honesty of our audience. A few of them are going, oh, God bless the engines. And other ones like, oh, easy peasy with hands, stockfish.
Well, if you're admitting to it.
Yeah, as long as you admit to it, I think it's, well,
it's okay.
It's okay.
But it takes all the fun away. Don't use computers for this.
Yeah, I mean, just have a go. Have a go at solving it. You know, involve all your friends, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And go to have a nap on it. This is also something that I once did. You know, I had like a 10-minute nap, and then I was like, this is the answer. And then I was like, okay.
Best feeling, right?
Yeah, it is a eureka moment when you solve a puzzle. When you play a good game as well, you feel on top of the world.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Mamedyarov, he's playing very ambitiously. It wasn't his type of position, I said, but he's trying to make it his type of position, and he's pushed forward in the centre with a pawn. That requires some calculation. It is a temporary pawn sacrifice, but I don't think Magnus should get tempted. I don't think you should capture this pawn in the centre of the board. And let's show what Magnus is calculating right now. He's got 10 minutes. And, OK, I was going to say he might be calculating moves such as this one. First thing you look at, white has pushed this pawn forward in the middle. It is attacked twice, defended twice, but you can remove a defender. So you can capture the knight on c3. White will take back. And, for example, you could jump forward, win a pawn with the black knight, attacking this bishop as well. But the downside is that after an explosive knight takes pawn capture, blowing open the centre, remember this line that we talked about, the black queen vulnerable? Then pawn takes knight. This would be a deadly check. Suddenly the black king is hit. It has to run to the corner, and rook takes knight. White regains the material with interest. And here, white has won a pawn, but more importantly, attacking the queen, attacking the bishop, and attacking this pawn on g7. This would be deadly. So Magnus, he didn't get tempted to get greedy after the pawn push yet. Instead, he moved his knight into the centre. I was going to say, if you want to play it safe, you could also move your queen off that central line. But Magnus, perhaps worried about white stepping even further forward with his pawn. He's blockaded. And a couple of threats have appeared as well. Queen takes knight, for example, is one threat. The knight a bit loose in the middle of the board. And also, in some circumstances, you can take this bishop, which is defended, but maybe that would be a favourable trade for black. What do you think of this one, Jovanka? Suddenly it's really heated up. I thought we'd see a slow manoeuvring game, but it's getting tactical.
It definitely is getting wild. I mean, with these two players, I think it was only a question of when. And like you say, it's a very complicated position, especially when you're in these positions where there are no pawns in the centre. Everything is very much on a move-by-move basis. Everything is going to hinge on how you develop the pieces, how you activate them, whether you give them a role, whether you can pose problems for your opponent. And at the minute, it is Magnus saying to Shaq, how are you going to defend your knight? How are you also going to preserve your light-squared bishop?
Yeah. And I've got to admit, this is one weakness that I feel I have in my game when it's purely about piece play, when I prefer it when there's some pawn structure questions, when there's some pawn breaks to play for long term, when it's purely just, OK, I have to move my knight. Wow, okay, Mamedyarov gives up a piece, but there is a trap involved. I think this is okay. Wow, what a move that is, so creative. But yeah, when it's just about pieces, you have to just calculate, you have to work out every single option. We have to jump back in because...
Is it okay?
This move made us both lean forward in shock. We were talking about how this knight is attacked. You have to defend it, have to move it. Mamedyarov said, no, I don't care. I'm just going to retreat my bishop. And Magnus doesn't take the bait. He moves his queen away. If the queen had come to capture this white knight, then the white bishop just moves and the queen is trapped in the center of the board.
Yeah.
Wow, this is really beautiful. I mean, it looks like the queen should have some escape route, but no, she's attacked twice as well, a double attack. And there's no way out for her. Every square she wants to run to is covered by one of white's minor pieces. So, yeah, what a trap. That is not obvious at all. It did cost Mamedyarov a couple of minutes, though, retreating to the square with his bishop. And Magnus said, OK, I know you spent a couple of minutes playing this really clever trick. I'm not going to fall into it. I'm going to move my queen to safety. And this has, however, given Mamedyarov time to push his pawn. So now this wall of pawns blocks out the effect of black's light squared bishop. This is quite a nice formation against this piece. And just before there was any problem with the white knight, Mamedyarov has blocked and plugged this diagonal with white's bishop. It's still a bit loose, I've got to say, for Mamedyarov, but if he can solve the issue of his knight, the tension, at least along this diagonal, then white should have a small advantage due to a superior pawn structure.
Yeah, but there's a lot of tension with that knight, and it does feel like Magnus has a sacrifice brewing.
Which sacrifice would that be?
Yeah, I can't see it just yet, but I'm thinking of jumping with the knight to some strange square, but it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, it doesn't
unfortunately.
Quite work. Yeah, maybe, I mean, Mamedyarov with this last move, he's getting ready to double up his two rooks. He's going to put them both on the d-file. Maybe Magnus should play copycat. Maybe he should do the same. For example, the black rook in the corner is the only piece that's not really joining the action yet, but you can move your rook up the board and maximum tension here. I mean, look at all the rooks pinned against this knight, all the other rooks, all of white's rooks, just tied down defending this knight. I mean, I would, if I were that knight, I would want to run away, hop away as soon as possible, because it's just so uncomfortable, this central tension.
I really like that plan. I think that's like the one that you play without thinking. Is it possible to also take use of the dark squares and move the knight to the edge of the board with the idea of hopping in to the f4 square?
Yeah, maybe hopping in here later. For example, if white plays too slowly, if white moves the king, you could, maybe not right now, but let's say white, I don't know, moves the bishop. Now you could hop into this square, because after bishop takes knight, the white knight would no longer be defended. So this would be one clever idea, potentially. That looks very tempting as well. That would be maybe a Magnus way of doing it, but first he improves his remaining pieces.
I'm just laughing because computer's like, top suggestion, move the rook, closely followed by second suggestion of moving the knight to the edge of the board. So we're both right. Just a matter of taste.
Exactly. And that's the thing in these middle games. It's still maximum tension, all the pieces on the board. And it is a matter of taste. This is where the players can kind of put their real stamp on the game. And Magnus is trying to put a stamp on by playing positionally, improving all his pieces. Mamedyarov is still unable so far to get that activity that he's really craving right now, especially down in the match. Yeah, it's all about the d-file, all about this central file with the rooks lined up against each other, staring off. And yeah, the clock times, at least this time, Mamedyarov, he's not too far behind, unlike game one. So he'll be happier. But yeah, all to play for.
Bar slightly over to Magnus Carlsen's side. He is up by 1 point after winning game 4. In the other games, I think actually bar is, well, it shifted now in the game between Arjun Erigaisi and Wesley So. Roughly in the middle, maybe slightly over to Wesley So's side. In the middle between Giri and Duda, it was Duda who won the first game there. And it is definitely over to Prag's side in game 2 against Liam Le. So maybe Prag, just like yesterday, is winning the first 2 games. But yesterday it collapsed for him. He did lose the match eventually, even if he won the first 2 games. Is it? We do have 4 players on site in San Francisco, in the US. And Tanya is also there together with, I mean, there's a bunch of guests there every day, Tanya. And who's in San Francisco with you right now?
Kaja, I've got a player with me, a very special player. She's somebody who is the youngest in the world to ever beat a grandmaster. She did that when she was just 10 years old. Not just that, she's one of the top junior players in the country. It's Carissa. Carissa, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you here with us, and we see you're here with a bunch of friends. I want to ask you that, Carissa, there's Abhimanyu Mishra, the youngest grandmaster from here. You're a player who beat a grandmaster when you were all of 10. The chess fever is on in the United States.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like it's kind of a result of Queen's Gambit, but that's already been said a ton of times, so.
You mentioned Queen's Gambit, but you also think that over the last couple of years with streaming and just becoming this e-sport, that's helped as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say I followed along super closely with Chess Online, so I can't say too much on that. But I would say like esports, like the Champions Chess Tour, everything like that has been doing a lot for chess, so.
Have you been following the tour closely?
Honestly, I haven't been following super closely. I'm going to be really honest with you. I've mostly been focusing on school and stuff.
You mentioned about school and you're studying at Stanford. What's that like, being a top junior player and having to manage a college?
Yeah, I guess like this first quarter, I haven't really been doing a lot of chess. So the US championships happened recently and I skipped out on that just so I could sort of figure out like a balance between my chess and college life before I get back into it.
But all your friends here, they're all strong players. What's the chess scene like in college to play in college teams?
Yeah, we have a chess club. It's kind of vibrant, but we're gonna play Pan Ams and maybe a few other team tournaments throughout the year.
You mentioned you haven't been following the tour so closely, but Wesley was one of the top performers in the Champions Chess Tour the last year, and he is making his debut for this year, this time in the finals. Are you rooting for him?
Oh yeah, for sure. Wesley and I have met, well, we played like on the same team at Olympia, and he's a great guy, so he's definitely my favorite here to win.
The Olympiad still has some rough memories for me, Carissa. But I have to ask you, it's always amazing to see the US team and the youngsters there because it feels like there's a really healthy competition and a really good relationship amongst all of you. You guys seem like you're great friends.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say I'm like very close with everyone on the US team. I don't know, the community is just really strong. We do like a lot of team bonding, so I think that really helps, especially for our performance at the Olympiad.
And what about speed chess? That's something that I know the US players love. Having Hikaru here as well, one of the best speed chess players. Wesley, who just won the Global Chess Championship. How's that? Do you also enjoy Rapid and Blitz?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Rapid and Blitz. I can't say I'm very good at it though, but something I like to do in my free time.
All right, awesome. Well, enjoy the games here today, and we're really glad you could join us. Thanks.
Thank you.
How cool to hear from Carissa Yip, an international master, 19 years old, now focusing maybe more on her studies at Stanford. But it must be so cool to be a part of American chess with high school teams and college and university teams and just the team spirit that they're so good at in the US.
Yeah, definitely. And also the US team had such great team spirit. I know the female team this is, and maybe probably the open team as well. But yeah, they're a great bunch of women, and they're very ambitious and also great spirit. And she's at Stanford as well. Has such good chess pedigree. Daniel Naroditsky was there. Alexandra Botes also studied there. You know, it's just a fantastic place to be.
Wow. And the future must be super bright for American chess, both for the women and for the male players. Youngest grandmaster ever, Mishra, is an American.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about India quite a lot. Now we talk about Uzbekistan after they won the Olympiad. But the US, I mean, they've got such strength and depth. And especially the last few years, there's more and more support for the young players financially and a lot more playing chess professionally, which is really nice to see. There's always been plenty of talented players over there in the US, but now more and more through streaming, through playing, they're kind of making chess their lives. And yeah, I think that does start at school, and it does start with that kind of team atmosphere. I'm a bit jealous of that. I wish we had that in the UK, in other parts of Europe. It really does lack there. But yeah, in the US, I mean, Carissa is just one of many, many talented young players in the US. It's great to see.
Yeah, how cool. And Magnus Carlsen, he is in the US. He really enjoys being in the US. He travels there quite a lot right now, playing Mamedyarov with the black pieces. And we've mentioned a bunch of times, it is with the white pieces that it seems to be going best for these two players against each other. But right now, the bar is definitely over to Magnus' side.
Yeah, it feels like Magnus has outmaneuvered Shaq somehow. It's still very tense, very unclear, and I'm struggling to see the breakthrough from Black. I don't see any immediate way to take advantage of this tension in the centre. Maybe Magnus as well, slightly frowning. He'll sense that he's doing quite well. Also, just while we were having that interview, Mamedyarov lost 2 tempi. He dropped back White's knight in the centre, then he planted it back in the centre of the board. Avoiding a trade of rooks, avoiding going for that simplification, which might have equalised the position. And it feels like now is the moment for Magnus to take advantage. But how, Jovanka?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this. I mean, why does the bar love Black's position so much? And for me, the move that kind of keeps on jumping and is jumping out here is just simply to put the knight on the edge of the board and try to control the dark squares. There's a lot of tension around the squares of G3, F4, E3, and we have to remember there is pin on the C5, G1 diagonal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of targets there. Black's bishop could get greedy at some point, start munching on all those pieces. But yeah, as you mentioned, Jovanka, this move very tempting, bringing the knight into a hole on the G3 square. The computer, we actually see Stockfish's suggestions in front of us. The computer advocates not improving the knight yet, but first improving the black bishop and bringing it to a nice open diagonal, cutting across. It looks like it's hitting thin air, but it could support potentially later a knight jump into D3. That could just break White's coordination. Some tactics with that, maybe. The computer also suggests just stepping back with this knight. I think similar along the lines of what you were describing there, Jovanka, just dropping back with a knight and later on going in to the F4 square with the other knight, perhaps. The third move of the computer, however, is the one that really jumps out at me, really shocks me, because the computer's third choice suggestion is just dropping Black's bishop into A8. And that makes zero sense at all. But it just shows that Black can waste a move, Black can do nothing with his bishop and still maintain the advantage. So that's how dominant Magnus is right now. That's how much control Black has over the position due to the tension along the D file, due to the tension along this diagonal as well. Both of those lines are very uncomfortable for White, and it's not easy to break out. And Magnus, he goes for your move, arguably the most tempting, most natural move in the position. He improves his knight.
Yeah, he improves his knight. I was going to say that move the bishop to the corner of the board, just ignoring that pawn is up for grabs on H4 and just go, yeah, I'm still much, much better. I mean...
That would be somewhat natural.
Exactly. It would be so unnatural. If Magnus played it, I would be like, right, check him. Something is fishy.
Let's search.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's scan him for outside assistance. Yeah. But he didn't play that odd-looking computer move. Instead, he brought his knight to the edge. And again, we see the computer suggestions. But look at this. Now, the margin for error, it's a bit like game 1 of the day. Shaq has only one move to stay alive. And it is the most natural move in the position, but it is also very committal. White's best move is to just bite the bullet, say, OK, I don't want to be pushed back any further. I have to kick you back. And to kick back this black knight, the knight will retreat. I'm not sure which direction it goes. It can step back this way, or it can step back this way. And in either case, at least now, White would have a chance maybe to push forward, to start playing against the black king, to start opening things up. This is Shaq's style, but 2 minutes left on the clock. He hasn't had his way today. It does look weakening. So will he hesitate? Will he miss the moment to push this F-pawn forward? Everything else, as we see, for example, bringing White's knight to this nice outpost, shuffling White's king into the corner, that would be bad. That would be very strong for Black. And, OK, Shaq does find it, and Magnus doesn't even hesitate between this choice. He drops back to undermine White's stronghold in the centre. It's looking good for Black, but Mamedyarov did find the best defence. And now he has a variety of moves. It's all about this knight in the centre. He has to move it, and the computer reflects that. Either you drop back this way, maybe a bit unnatural, looks like you're going the wrong direction away from your king, or the other top 2 moves, maybe the most natural, capturing a set of knights, trading pieces off the board, or stepping back towards the white king with the knight. What do you think he'll play, Jovanka? I
think he's actually going to retreat the knight, this last move, moving it to F3, attacking a pawn, because I have to say the position despite all appearances, I think it's still incredibly unpleasant for white. I mean, even if you trade off all the pieces, black's pieces are just so great. I mean, they has pressure on the dark squares. The f4 pawn is weak. And to me, this is a fantastic position. I would be very positive about winning it if I were playing on the dark side. But then again...
On the dark side.
On the dark side, yeah, I know.
No Jedi here.
No.
Yeah, and I agree, Jovanka. Even this position that we're showing on the analysis board, even if all the rooks come off, it's still domination for black. For example, the dark squared bishop, there's tension. If you trade those off as well. Magnus, remember, he's an endgame master, but he would be happy to trade off the queens. And it's all to do with this one weakness. It's just this f4 pawn. There's no way to defend it. No good way, at least, because the knight is attacking. You can't step forward. You can't defend with a pawn. You have to drop back with your knight. But then suddenly this pawn on the edge of the board drops off. And yes, this is 7 moves down the line, 6, 7 moves down the line. But every move would be a capture. Every move would be forced if Mamedyarov starts by trading knights. And he doesn't trade off knights. That variation would have begun with knight takes knight. He does find the computer's best move, but he is heading in the wrong direction with his knight. And now look at this poor piece, this poor bishop on the edge of the board. It's a block of wood right now. It needs a few moves to get back into the game.
Yeah, and what's also super concerning is that the position is still sharp, still lots of tactical possibilities, and Shaq has just over 30 seconds on the clock. Oh, it's getting tough.
Yeah, and remember game 1, not only did he make mistakes when low on time, but he didn't even try to defend. So he was worse in that endgame. He was probably losing, but he just resigned. He just gave up. Because he feels really uncomfortable, Shaq, especially when Magnus has so much time to maneuver with and to cook up these dangerous ideas. I think we'll see a few exchanges. I think we might see something similar to that line that we just showed with rooks coming off the board, bishops coming off the board. It's just about whether Magnus can start to attack some weaknesses in the white camp. White's king is the weaker of the two as well, remember, and that's not a situation that Mamedyarov is used to. He doesn't like his king being the target.
Struggling today, Mamedyarov, but what can you say about Magnus Carlsen today? Is this just him really on fire?
So far, so good for Magnus. Yeah, it feels like day 1, he won against Wesley So, but it was a bit shaky. Day 2, he controlled things against Erigaisi, 1 or 2 small slips, but today, no mistakes so far from Magnus. Not even a small inaccuracy yet. He's outplayed Mamedyarov with black. No mean feat, no easy achievement.
It just seems to me like it's a very smart opening choice. He seems to have gauged how Mamedyarov plays. He seems to have understood the weaknesses and the strengths, and he's just chosen very good openings.
Mm-hmm. 1 set of rooks have left the board. I'm expecting a second set to also disappear in the next move or 2.
Me too. I'm also expecting a black knight to spring forward to the b4 square. It's very difficult to come up with an attacking plan for Mamedyarov. I mean, there is one hope, and that is the queen is attacking the b6 pawn.
Yeah, White's queen does have some targets. The problem is White's queen is also required in the defence.
Exactly,
so if
yeah.
she gets greedy and goes off to take some of Black's queenside pawns, then there might be, yeah, she might leave weaknesses behind. Magnus, 3.5 minutes. Yeah, I think taking a set of rooks off would make sense. Black's knight, as you mentioned, both the black knights have nice outposts to come into and sit on. And if you look at the dark squares, actually, a lot of Black's pawns, especially on the wings, they're on dark squares, and White has no control over the squares they cover. White's light squared bishop is far from happy, and the dark squared bishops have disappeared. So on the dark squares, Black, I think that's where he wants to make his invasion. And okay, Mamedyarov waiting for Magnus's move. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just thinking, ironically enough, some of the best moves in the position would be actually retreating White's pawns. You know, step back with the A pawn, step back with the F pawn. Yeah. Then the position would actually be completely level.
Especially the White F pawn. You want it back on F2, protecting White's king. Yeah, I agree, actually. If anyone, White would be better if White's pawns could retreat somehow, but pawns can never retreat. And, OK, Black's queen slides across. So, dual-purpose move. Firstly, Black defends all the pawns over there on the left flank, but also look at that F4 pawn, Black on the diagonal, Black's queen, adding pressure. That's a nice sneaky move as well, especially when your opponent's in time trouble. You want to set little traps, little threats, and the more you create threats move by move, the more likely it is that they will walk into something nasty. And, OK, Mamedyarov, now this is true Mamedyarov. He's trying, rather than defend passively, which a lot of us would have done, he's trying to open up lines, and indirectly, if there's a trade of pawns on this f5 square, white's light squared bishop, suddenly it's on the same diagonal as black's king. It might open up.
It's a great move. It's asking Magnus a question. How is he going to defend it? And he does actually trade off pawns. Perhaps he was forced, but it does feel like this is playing into Mamedyarof's plans.
Yeah, white's knight, for example, has access to this beautiful outpost on d5. I don't think you want to jump in right now. I'm not sure whether you can. Maybe you just have to take the time out to go and recapture a pawn.
Shak is down to 13 seconds.
That might be the key factor in the position.
Why is he not capturing the pawn? Is he afraid of... OK, finally, he plays it. 19 seconds left on the clock. I expected it to be instantaneous. Yeah. What could he have been thinking about?
Yeah, I think he's just not in the flow yet, Mamedyarov. Today, he's just started a bit tentatively, just negatively, just too slow, not trusting his instincts. He should trust his instincts. He's beaten Magnus a few times this season already. He is capable. Yeah, that's the type of move. It's automatic. You play it in 1 second. You build that time up for later. But it took him a while. And Magnus now, I'm expecting maybe that trade of rooks finally to happen. That tension is almost unbearable now. And also black's knight to jump away from blocking black's bishop on that left flank.
Yeah.
Just improve the black knights. I think that's the key.
That is definitely the key. I mean, something that I would be attracted to is actually springing that knight to the b4 square, just liberating the light squared bishop, and then putting pressure on white's g2 pawn.
Yeah, let's just quickly show this. Black has a variety of very tempting moves, and the most natural, I agree, Jovanka, is probably the strongest as well, bringing the knight, targeting this bishop, and more importantly, opening up this diagonal. And, I mean, you're forcing this bishop back to a terrible square, back on b1. And, OK, he does eventually play that. And Mamedyarov, he just has to move quickly. Nearly under 10 seconds, you just have to retreat your bishop. It's a bad piece. It's an automatic. There's no other option, really. You have to play it sooner or later. 4 seconds from Mamedyarov.
3 seconds.
He trades rooks first.
That's fine.
And then he drops back his bishop. OK, but I don't know if that trade of rooks was the right moment. It feels like the other black knight is going to come in. Once the black knight comes in, suddenly the white king is almost caught in a mating net. If the black queen ever creeps in on the first rank, that's going to be checkmate. It can't right now. d1 is covered by the white knight, but if the black queen can ever break through onto this line, game over. So, OK, Magnus does come in with the black knight. Mamedyarov has to play for tricks. Black's pieces are so impressive, all on outposts. Can he hold the fort with 10 seconds, Mamedyarov? We're going to keep asking ourselves that question. He's trying to counterattack. Wow, pushing his pawn forward. This pawn is poisoned. If the black queen takes this pawn, then the white queen gets to the 8th rank, and actually the black king is trapped. OK, that's a clever move.
It is a clever move, but at the same time, it feels like a very committal move, because after pawn takes pawn, white is going to have to throw some action. And at the same time, can you do that? And Magnus has the time to calculate everything, because like you say, both kings now in mortal danger, and he has captured the pawn. And I guess maybe Shak is in his element, actually. Yeah. He knows it's not about moving the queen to the right side. It's actually about introducing all the pieces to the attack. And he centralizes the knight.
Yeah, at least for Shak, he has, for the first time in the game, a target, and that is the black king. So yes, he's gone down a pawn, but black's doubled f-pawns don't make a great impression, and the black king is a bit more airy than it was earlier in the game. So yeah, despite the fact that he's a pawn down, I think this was the only chance for him. And you mentioned being in his element. I think at least Magnus will start to have a little bit of doubt in the back of his mind for the first time.
Yeah, has ticked under the minutes as well, Magnus.
Yes, and OK, he improves the black queen. So now there is one queen check. White's queen can go to the top of the board with a check, but the black king, I think, is just safe to move.
And he's coming close to the 10-second mark. Oh, he's riding his luck here. I mean, the big question for Shak is how is he going to stop the black king from finding safety? And he just throws his knight forward.
This knight could be traded off. Yeah. Black's knight can just go back and recapture. Is Magnus maybe just going to switch from trying to go for the white king? Is he going to switch to an endgame now? Because he is a pawn up, remember?
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's just maybe the safer strategy against Mamedyarov. Before things start to turn too much in white's favour, get rid of this white knight. Knights on f5 should not be allowed to survive. So, OK, a knight trade. And Magnus saying, let's get the queens off. Shak saying, no, you're a pawn up. I can't allow that. Magnus saying, let's get the knights off. And that also makes sense. Black's knight was no longer really threatening anything, recentralizing it. He can kind of bully white, because if you imagine the queens and knights coming off the board, in terms of pawn structure, black, not just a pawn up, but black is winning because a lot of white's pawns are on light squares, and black has a light square bishop to target those. Mamedyarov, okay, under 10 seconds, under 5 seconds now.
4 seconds.
He has to move the knight. He trades off.
He does trade off the pieces, but his position starts becoming very, very shaky. I mean, he can barely move.
Yeah.
His queen is forced to defend the E1 square. This is why he retreats the bishop. But this is Magnus's type of position. All he has to do is think about defending the H4 pawn. And if he doesn't need to do that, then he can just step forward with the king.
Yeah. If Magnus can get the queens off as well, the endgame is completely winning for black. Just the extra pawn will count. And yeah, that perfect coordination of black's pawns on dark squares, white's pawns on light squares, it suits the black bishop more than its counterpart. I'm expecting Magnus, yeah, just to move the queen, maybe defend a pawn. He can maybe offer a queen exchange as well. I think this is what Magnus is calculating, the black queen coming to the G3 square, trying to force the queens off the board. That's either very good, or it might lead to an endgame that Shaq can hold. So Magnus, he has to work that out. Now Magnus down to 15 seconds. Suddenly it's a race against time.
He's now down to 10 seconds. I predict that he's simply going to defend the pawn, keep it simple. And no, he retreats his bishop.
Okay, stepping back with his bishop. I don't know if Mamedyarov can get greedy now. Maybe he can. White's queen had a choice. Maybe it could have gone to capture a pawn, but Mamedyarov just defends everything. And again, Magnus, he has to try and get the queens off, I feel. That must be what black's best winning bet. Before white's queen gets active, 5 seconds again for the world number one, and now he goes for the queen exchange. Mamedyarov, maybe he has to allow it. If you don't go for the queen exchange, then, okay, this is a problem. Black's queen is getting greedy, grabbing some pawns.
And, well, now is the time for the white queen to get greedy and grab a pawn and check on the board.
Oh.
King goes to the corner. But there's queen takes pawn.
Yeah, black's queen can just take white's pawn on the H3 square. The pawn on G2 is pinned. Magnus can win a pawn for free. He doesn't spot it. He could have repeated the position and won a pawn in the process. Mutual blindness there. It's still winning for black. It's still good for black because he has 2 passed pawns on the queen side, but he could have ended the game there and then.
Whoa.
Okay, this is nerves now from both players, and understandably, it's been a really, really dramatic, topsy-turvy game. And Magnus now, his bishop's under attack from the white queen on the 4th rank. The black bishop steps back 1 square, allowing some checks. That is, yeah, playing with fire slightly. White's only chance to save this game is to give some checks, surely.
Yeah, and here they come. And now there's another check. King has to hide, probably in the middle of the board, actually. Okay.
He can repeat the position a few times first. That's what he's doing, Magnus, and now he goes to the middle.
Good strategy.
And Magnus, he's going to be relieved that black's queen defends a very important pawn over there on b6. And at some point, either black's queen or bishop will leap back to block some checks. Yeah, as long as black's king hides on dark squares, it should be safe.
Totally safe. And just look how well centralized the queen on E3 is. I mean, she is in the perfect square. King is hiding on the F6 square. If there's a check, it can easily be blocked.
Yeah, and it will be blocked. I think we will see that on the board in a moment. Mamedyarov looking away, head in hands now. Yeah, puffing out his cheeks. He knows that this one is gone. He's facing Magnus. Anyone else in the world, you probably play on. You probably believe in your chances. But do we see another early resignation? And we do. Mamedyarov throws in the towel for the 2nd time today.
He goes up by 2 points now. Magnus Carlsen winning now with the black pieces, surprisingly, against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. On fire today, the world number 1. He has 15 minutes before game 3, and that could be decisive. With just a draw, he will win the match. Let's hear from Magnus.
Magnus, 2 game points ahead. You're making this look easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough game. We both got short of time at some point. Like, I felt like I was pretty comfortable for a while, slightly better. But yeah, it's always tough. He always has tricks, but I think I navigated it in a decent way.
There was this moment he went king h1 and you've got queen h3 with his g2 pawn pinned. Did you miss that or did you not like it?
When was that?
When you went king h1, your queen is on e3. And instead you took bishop a4.
Oh,
Missed it? We thought it was a blind spot.
but bishop oh, my bishop is on c6. Yeah. Yeah, that was just a blind spot. Okay, that would have made it easier, of course. But I mean, even the game was easily winning.
All right, good luck.
How cool was that? Magnus not realizing that moment. You have to show us, David.
Yeah, and I think 99 times out of 100, Magnus would have spotted this, but it was just the heat of the battle. It was the clock ticking down, and it was in this position. Magnus gave a check with the black queen, very strong move, and Mamedyarov, it's a difficult position, but he put his king on a bad square. He put his king in the eye line of the black bishop, and this did allow Magnus, if he had spotted it, to capture a pawn for free. And it is using a pin. The white pawn cannot capture the black queen due to the bishop staring down at white's king. So white's king would have had to move. Magnus could have gone back, checked, and only then gone to win a pawn. He could have reached what he did in the game, but with an extra pawn. As we saw, however, he didn't need to find this, and he still kept control by capturing a pawn. Yes, white won the h4 pawn, but after the bishop stepped away, these two pawns are going to run sooner or later to decide the game. This outside runner especially is going to become a new queen, and that's why Mamedyarov resigned a few moves later.
And that means he's going to be in a must-win situation in Game 3. Mamedyarov to take it to a Game 4. A draw or win for Magnus means he wins the match. And the situation is now the same for Pragg. Again, he has won the first 2 games today, also winning Game 2. Let's hear from the young Indian.
Pragg, 2 important wins in this match. How are you feeling after the second win?
Yeah, I'm happy, but it's not at all. Like from yesterday, I learned that, so I have to be focused in the next game.
And that's going to be the most important thing, to feel that the match is still on.
Yeah, it's yesterday's memory that's just popping in. So,
well, so
to focus.
So far, it makes it look like you've totally forgotten about yesterday. We'll wish you all the best for the third game.
Yeah, thank you.
So 2 matches can definitely be now decided in Game 3s. Pragg up by 2 points and Magnus Carlsen up by 2 points. Wesley So still playing Game 2 against Arjun Erigaisi. He was winning the first one, but it ended in a draw. Wesley So, but again, the bar is over to his side. Is he winning this game?
It looks very likely that Wesley's going to win this game as well. And that is because, if we do a quick count, he's up the exchange. Black is up a rook for just a bishop. And yes, white has a very advanced pawn on g6, but there we go, it disappears. It's looking very difficult for Arjun. If he could keep a set of rooks on the board, if he could keep white's piece there, maybe he has some chances to hold, but unfortunately the black rooks are just too strong.
Yeah. They're just going to invade the second row, even if a set of rooks get traded off, and I'm predicting 1 rook will appear either on h2 or g2, and I think it's pretty much game over. And incidentally, this will be Wesley's first win of the tournament.
Yeah, I said again because I thought he was going to win that first game, but no, it slipped away. So yeah, Wesley's first win of the tournament on day 3.
Yeah.
That is, I think, maybe the biggest shock we've seen in the whole tour, let alone in the finals. But okay, Erigaisi, full credit to him. He's battling on. It's very difficult, though. Look at these 2 rooks. This is why I said it was going to be difficult to keep 1 white rook on the board. You have to go passive. Black's rooks are just too strong. Wesley's even happy to let his a-pawn drop, as long as he can break through with those black rooks. And once white's f-pawn falls, which it will now, there we go. Black's e-pawn is the killer. You can march it forward now.
Yep.
And white's rook still passive. White's king is actually in the way, if anything, and there we go. This pawn promotes on a dark square, just incidentally guarded by black's dark square bishop, potentially.
And also the white king, as it stands, is right now in a mating net. So you even have ideas of actually just sacrificing a rook on b2. That's a very flashy idea.
Actually, that's a killer threat, right, Jovanka?
Yeah.
Wow, we have to show this because you've just spotted Wesley's threat. For example, if white moves his bishop, let's say away. Okay, he sees the threat and he stops it, but if the white bishop had run away, black can remove a defender. By giving up a rook, he removes the blockader potentially off his passed pawn, and after a rook trade, yes, white's a bishop up suddenly, but black will come down and it's inevitable. A new queen will appear on the board on e1. But, of course, Erigaisi had spotted that threat. He moved his bishop to try and guard this square. Black, however, just pushed anyway. And this is the current position. This is why it's so important that black's pawn promotes on a dark square, because now his bishop can come to the side. And I think any moment now we'll just see Wesley. I mean, he can promote to a new queen, actually. But I was going to say he can move his rook out the way and the pawn will just run through and promote. It will cost white his rook because the pawn will be guarded by black's bishop. You can promote now, however, and Wesley does that. He makes a new queen because after the queen is captured, black's rook will move with a check, jumping out the way, and wherever white's king goes, you can just take this rook for free. We're going to see the final throws of this game now. Black is just going to be up too much material. Just take the rook, you're up a whole exchange, rook for bishop, and a spare rook. Maybe if this rook didn't exist, black still has winning chances, but black is more than a rook up. And yeah, he's going to convert. He's going to convert 100%. And there we see it. Wesley So wins his first game.
Finally, for Wesley So, will this mean that he starts winning a bunch of games? He takes the lead in the match against Arjun Erigaisi. Wesley So, this is game 2, and he won it. As always, checking all the other games, Wesley So. This guy just loves chess. Always wants to check the positions. He will now have 10 minutes to get ready for game 3. He can decide the match, actually, if he also wins game 3. And let's see if he stops for a comment after this great win. Wesley So playing in San Francisco.
Wesley, while the quality of play has been high, finally you did manage to convert it to a full point. Yeah. Feeling good?
Yeah, for sure. I've been waiting a long time for this. This is my first win in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour this year, so I'm very happy and excited. I mean, all said and done, I probably should have won the first game, and I probably shouldn't have won the second game. So it's all fair, it's all good. But I've been really looking forward to my first victory. You know, I mean, my level of play hasn't been exactly desirable.
Actually, I've always noticed this about you, that regardless of the result, you have a very positive outlook and are always looking forward to the next game. How do you manage to do that?
Well, I love chess. I love playing. I've been a chess professional for 8 years now. I've had good years and I've had bad years. And you know, I'm used to losing. This is the life. I'm 29 years old, you know, this is what I do, this is my job. Part of the game, I have everything I need in my life. And I'm playing in chess career not exactly for money, but to try to achieve things and to set goals in my life. And, you know, I have the full support of my family. And, yeah, I've been in this world for a long time. You know, chess world is small. I have friends, you know, it's nice to meet people like you and the traveling. That's why I like playing over the board, because I can see my opponent and I can see people. It's more fun than playing in your pajamas at home. But I still have goals to accomplish, you know, like trying to increase my classical rating. But in general, I'm, you know, pretty happy with my life, pretty content.
Wesley, you're way too humble and modest. You're coming from a big win in CGC as well, so you're very...
Needed, yeah. Yeah, that was much needed, totally unexpected. And you know, sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but I like working hard on my chess. You know, in between tournaments, I can put some hours when I want to.
We love seeing you in action. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley.
Magnus Carlsen is on fire today. He has won 2 games, and game 3 will start in 5 minutes. He will have the white pieces, and with only a draw or a win, he will win the match. Shakhriyar Mamdjarov is in big trouble and in a must-win situation, but we know he is definitely capable this season on the tour. Mamdjarov played what he has described as his best game ever. You know, I heard rumors that was incredible by Mamdjarov winning against Giri.
Oh my God!
I cannot believe
Shaq is having full fun here. What a game.
Oh God, this is not the game of the tournament. This is the game of the champions chess tour. Shakir and Mamadou sacrificing a knight, a bishop, a rook, and a queen in one game.
We'll just show all the highlights, just the action where he made the sacrifices. In this position, White is trying to attack against the Black King. First, he sacrificed a rook for a knight, giving up material here, getting active with his queen. If we fast forward a few more moves, we see Anish trying to attack. And this next sacrifice is here, giving up his knight just a pawn to distract the Black Queen away from defending the 7th rank. Next, he sacrificed his bishop, giving up his bishop for a pawn. And okay, there is a pin, so this is just a temporary sacrifice, but the key detail was here, bringing his rook across and now giving a check with his pawn. I think this is what Anish Giri had missed, because when the king sidesteps, now White can give up his queen for the black bishop. If the king had sidestepped the other way, this would have been checkmate, trapped in the corner. And by giving his queen up for the bishop, he simply ensures a new queen. And the final touch was this knight check, hitting the black king. The king can't defend its rook any longer. If it steps forward, this is deadly, a rook check. And let's just show the final few moves. Capturing and simply stepping back with his knight, securing his own king. After all of those sacrifices, White's actually a pawn up, and next move, there's going to be a deadly check or two. What a game.
Maybe one of my best game in my chess career, because it's really, I sacrificed first pawn, after, I don't know, rook, after again knight, bishop, I mean, after queen, after again pawn going to queen. I mean, every move, it was very interesting.
What a game that was by Shakhriyar Mamedyarov winning against Anish Giri. Just sacrifices all over the place in that game. And is that what he needs to do now in a must-win situation?
He really does. He needs a position where it can be tactics galore, where he can out-calculate Magnus, where he can use this energy that he seems to draw every single time just to bamboozle the opponent. But it will be difficult. He has black, and Magnus, he's so good at shutting down the game if he really wants to. Yeah, maybe the opportunity will have gone, but I think Mamedyarov, if he's going to lose this match, he'll want to lose it in style. So I'm expecting fireworks still.
And this game, of course, it is one of the games you can vote for in the best game of the 2022 seasons. The experts across all Chess24 streams have nominated their favorites, and now it's up to you to vote for the best game this season. You can do so by heading into chess24.com/tour and casting your vote. I bet this game will get a lot of votes. At 37 years old, he's had a long career, Mamedyarov, and still he says this is probably the best game of his career. And he needs to play a fantastic game now in Game 3 against Magnus Carlsen. The world #1 is sitting inside Shack 15, and he's been on fire today. He won Game 1 with the white pieces, then he won Game 2 with the black pieces, and he will have the white pieces. Also in Game 3, a draw or a win, and he wins his 3rd match in a row. Praggnanandhaa as well. He's won both of the 2 first matches and can decide it in Game 3 against Liam Lair. Do you think he's going to have some nightmares about what happened yesterday? He won the first 2 games against Anish Pragg and then lost the match eventually.
Yeah, once bitten, twice shy. I think he will have learned his lessons there. I think he will definitely not repeat the same openings. And I also think that he's learned from yesterday's experience where he played a little bit negatively. He played some passive decisions. I think he's just going to go there fresh and just go, well, we're going to play for a win.
Yeah. And how about Magnus Carlsen then? Super experienced, has been in this situation a bunch of times with the white pieces. What should we expect from him?
So there's already 1 move on the board, and I think that gives us a clue. Magnus has gone back to his childhood favourite, 1e4. He's played this throughout his career, and in situations where he wants to draw, I'm recalling the final game of the 2016 World Championship against Karyakin. He forced a draw very quickly in the Berlin. He always seems to go back to this opening, 1e4, because there are forcing variations, there are forcing ways that you can kind of guarantee you get a stable position. And also flashback to one of his World Championship matches against Anand, where it was the Sicilian, and he found a way to shut down Anand's activity. So I think that's the name of the game for the experienced Magnus Carlsen, to shut down Mamedyarov's fun. And it is the Sicilian, good choice in a must-win situation for black. And possibly If Magnus pushes his central pawn forward, the open Sicilian will see what we call the Taimanov or the Khan, different variations with a lot of tension. So Magnus pausing now, he doesn't necessarily want to imbalance things by pushing forward in the centre yet.
Yeah. I have to say, though, I've noticed Magnus is the expert at managing to get very simple, very comfortable positions with white. I mean, I remember many times where his opponents have been in must-win situations, and he just plays like this. He plays the open Sicilian, he gets a comfortable position, and everyone is just struggling against him. And he decides to pick up his c-pawn, move it 2 squares forward. Look at him. He's getting ready to close the position down. Magnus is just a genius. What can I say? This is why he's the world champion.
And wow, Mamedyarov. I was about to praise Magnus for being universal, but Mamedyarov pushing Gary the g-pawn forward 2 squares. You never see this in a serious game from top players. He's just forgetting piece development. He's throwing his pawns forward. He's trying to kick away white's knight with his pawn. It's obviously not a good move because you have to develop your pieces, but he's already trying to shock Magnus, playing on that psychological factor. This game is not going to be calm, no matter what Magnus tries to do. Even if Magnus tries to shut it down, okay, stopping the advance of black's pawn now. Mamedyarov, he's just determined. He's shown us with that move. He just wants to go down in style. And, OK, now we will see an open Sicilian, but what is black's pawn doing on g5? It's so weak, you could even take it now. Jovanka, it's
It's chess humor.
Yeah, it's just a desperation from Shaq. You know, he knows he's in a must-win situation. Let's just play the kind of craziest moves ever. And I agree with David. I mean, it's not good. Yeah. Do not do this at home. I mean, as David's mentioned, you know, the g5 pawn is weak. And Magnus is just saying, hey, I'm going to play it like a normal game. And I'm constantly going to ask you, why did you put your pawn on that square?
Yeah, and let's just say Mamedyarov has never prepared this before, because if you study this position with a computer, you see it's pretty much lost already for black, as we see on the evaluation bar.
After 6 moves.
After 6 moves. So he's freestyling. As you mentioned, that word desperation, Jovanka. Maybe it's not showing enough self-belief from Shaq that he has to freestyle like this. But we also have to commend him because he's entertaining us, showing us something we've never seen before. And it does remind me of a position of a variation that I've seen many times from someone who passed away recently, Mike Basman, a very influential international master from the UK. And he used to like to start games with the creepy crawly opening, as we call it. One a6, one h6, just slowly edging forward on the sides of the board, creating weaknesses. And it just looks so ugly, it's so bad. But there are reasons you play it, and that's mostly psychological. The opponent wants to punish you, and therefore they get too carried away, and they lose their objectivity. But Magnus, it's going to be hard to unsettle him. Yeah. And this is the downside of pushing your g-pawn too far forward. White is going to push and undermine your pawn structure. White's rook on the h-file about to get open.
Yeah, and this is a direct consequence of Shaq's last move, which was probably an inaccuracy, because it allows White just to blast open the right side of the board. I mean, how is black going to maintain his pawns on there? He can't. He either has to trade or he has to trade.
Yeah.
There's nothing for it. Or he can move his knight, but that's not great either.
Yeah, he does take this pawn, but even if Magnus doesn't go and capture this pawn with his rook right now, which, OK, he has just done, but even if he hadn't, black's pawn structure is ruined, it's wrecked. Can you imagine anywhere for the black king to be safe? I think you have to stay in the centre, because the black king is definitely not going to the right anymore. It's too open over there. White's rook is ready for an attack. You definitely can't go to the left side of the board. You've got too many pieces in the way. You can't castle on that side either. So black's king is an eternal... I mean, it's an eternal target for white.
This reminded me of that song, Stuck in the Middle with You. That's it, Jokers to the right of me.
Is that Sugar Babes?
No.
Stuck in the... No.
Yeah, no, the one that goes Jokers to the right of me, something clowns to the left. I'm stuck in the middle with you. And it kind of, that king is just there, you know, what are black's pieces doing?
Yeah, and meanwhile, I'm pretty sure Magnus is going to be happy to castle the queen side to the left. Castle long, as we say. The white queen at some point will step into the battle. And, yeah, I mean...
She's going to go all the way to h5. Yeah, and, oh, actually, she doesn't. Doesn't even bother.
Simple.
Just keep it simple. And then white's king is getting ready to castle. The pawn is under fire.
Yeah,
I think Mamedyarov will will last longer than 20 moves?
I think it's a miracle if Mamedyarov lasts to move 20 in this game, I've got to say. Let's just show why Black's position is so hopeless right now. It's just riddled with weaknesses. And firstly, this queen advance has lined up a direct threat against this h6 pawn. It's now attacked 3 times, and it's just going to fall sooner rather than later. And the other reason, as you say, Jovanka, I mean, for example, if you develop a piece, I don't think White's going to get greedy anytime soon. White can just castle. And all of White's pieces are participating. These knights, this bishop, all fantastically placed. White's king is going to be super safe in the corner. And yeah, clear targets, especially with this bishop. The white rook can even slide across and undermine this guy. Black can't even develop his queenside knight. If Black ever moves this piece out, then White can just take. White can just capture, and this pawn would drop. Maybe White wants more, but at the very minimum, you're going to go up a pawn. Yeah, this position is so ugly. And poor Mamedyarov impressing us so much with that g-pawn push, but this is the reason we don't freestyle in the opening. The consequence is you might get a position full of holes. And OK, the knight moves to attack this rook, but the rook is just going to shift. You can step up 1 square. It can just step back the whole way if you want to play it super safe. Any rook move to safety, and Magnus has a decisive advantage. Too many asleep pieces, too many dormant black pieces over here. And yeah, no defense.
Definitely, Magnus needs to be kind here and actually give Mamedyarov about 5 free moves.
And then maybe
and then maybe he's okay, but even that, Anna, is a maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Big maybe. I think I would just play it safe here. It's slightly tempting to go and blockade this h-pawn, but yeah, if you just play it safe, retreat the rook. OK, he does blockade in the end, Magnus Carlsen. But yeah, next move, pretty much automatically, you castle queenside. OK, he doesn't. First, he moves his bishop, but he's getting ready to castle queenside Magnus. And when that does happen, that will signal the beginning of the end, potentially, for Mamedyarov. The knight firstly attacks the white rook. OK, he's found a good formation. We've got to give him credit. The rook is going to be forced to retreat. And OK, there we go. It retreats. Bit of an odd square in the eye line of this bishop. But
that's unexpected. I mean, of course, White is still massively better. I was going to say go all the way to the starting square.
Yeah. I mean, this square just looks vulnerable. It's as if you're giving Mamedyarov hope somehow. But yeah, if you push this pawn forward to attack this rook and attack the knight at the same time, White can defend that. Those 2 threats in a very simple way. White's knight can jump to block. And this would be very strong. A capture does not help Black at all, because actually White would have full control over the light squares. Instead, Mamedyarov jumps out with his queen to one side of the board, but Magnus, I mean, he wanted to castle anyway. White's king is going to be super safe on the b1 square. Is Mamedyarov, do you think, Jovanka, really going to try and copycat and castle?
Well, he would dream of, I mean, that's just like a pipe dream or just some ambition, because as Magnus has done, just retreat the knight and the pawn on d6 is hanging.
Yeah, I think we might see this game finish quite soon. Unfortunately for Mamedyarov, the queen is hanging. You have to move her no matter where you go. If Magnus wants to keep it super safe, he takes this pawn, gets the queens off the board, clear pawn advantage. Or you can even take this pawn. Remember, this one is still hanging. It's attacked 3 times. OK, Mamedyarov puts his queen in the middle of the board, but is this queen just going to get trapped at some point? I guess his idea, if the white pawn steps forward to attack the queen, which it has just done, is to give up his knight. But you're going to be a whole piece down, and we see the black queen trapped. It's captured. The white queen is captured, but at the end, Magnus just wins a knight for free.
And Shaq has decided he's had enough of that, and Magnus takes the point.
Wow, that was a quick game, a quick day. 3 games, Magnus wins them all and takes 3 points against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Wow, Magnus Carlsen walking off. He must be super happy. 3 wins in his match against Mamedyarov. Let's hear what he says after that.
Magnus, even quicker now. You've wrapped up the whole match. Tell us, was that a product of the match situation, G5?
Yeah, I think actually G5 is a decent move in a lot of situations. Like, for instance, after knight c6, if knight c3, then you can play G5 quite reasonably. But when you don't have time to prevent D4, then that's just a lot worse.
At the start of the day, you said this match could go either way. Were you expecting it to get over in just 3 games?
No, I wasn't expecting that, but it's always one possible outcome that you get ahead from the start and then things flow quite smoothly. So I haven't had, I feel like, too many of those matches recently. So I was, happy to get one of those.
Is the reason also because of Shark's chaotic, aggressive style that these kind of results can happen?
Yeah, but I think anybody would struggle if I win the first game and I'm feeling okay.
Fair enough. All right. Well, early evening for you. What's the plan to take some rest?
Yeah, we'll see. I got a few extra hours now. I mean, probably it's still sunny outside, so I'll try to do that. Usually when the game's finished, it's almost dark, so that would be nice.
Enjoy the evening.
I don't think Mamadjaro is feeling sorry for Magnus if it's getting dark. It's the middle of the night for Mamadjaro. He must be upset after losing in 3 games. Another dominant win for Magnus Carlsen. Here is today's Lisaveta learning point.
And today's learning point is about being careful, choosing your moments when to be aggressive. It was a good day at the office for Magnus Carlsen. He already won the first 2 games. Shaq, as black, was in a must-win situation. But as we saw from Anish Giri yesterday, often when you need to win, the best idea is just to keep the tension, just keep the game going as long as possible, not to lash out and be too aggressive. But that's what Mamadjarov did here as black. Very typical opening, a Sicilian, and Mamadjarov pushed his pawn to g5. This really impressed us in the studio with its courage, but unfortunately it just left too many weaknesses behind. This pawn is a clear target, and as we saw just a couple of moves later, stopping now at the advance of this pawn, Magnus, just pushing this pawn, and suddenly g5 is already a target. It's hit by the white bishop, it's hit by the white knight. Yes, the surprise factor was there, but Magnus reacted very calmly. And just to show how Magnus wrapped this up, after a couple of captures, after some pieces were developed, this was already the beginning of the end. Only on move 9, Magnus seizes a decisive advantage by pushing forward his h-pawn. He opens up his rook, he shatters the black pawn structure, and now Mamadjarov must have been regretting his decision. This pawn should actually be back 1 square, and then we would have had a more sensible game. So don't lash out, just be patient, and don't create weaknesses.
Not the best day for the great Shakhriyar Mamadjarov, but what can you say about Magnus Carlsen today, Jovanka? Is this the world #1 at his best?
Definitely, you know, he's got the chess psychology spot on. He's understood what Shakhriyar's weaknesses are, and he's just played the right choices. And you saw just now, you know, when Shaq tried to be creative, he knew exactly what he had to do. And Magnus was very confident, and with good reason. He just keeps getting better and better.
Still matches, of course, going on. There are, all of them can actually be decided in game 3. We do have the puzzle going on. Is anyone solving it, Jovanka?
You know, the funny thing is, as time has gone by and people have had time to sit down and work it out, they're starting to get the correct answer.
Because I heard rumors now that Tanya was able to show it to Magnus, this puzzle, white to play.
And how long did it take Magnus to solve it? Or is he still...
I think she's showing it to him now, and we want to show the viewers, of course. But I have a feeling we will get the answer to the puzzle then. White to play and mate in 2.
Okay.
Oh, I can't wait to see, how long it took Magnus. It took me a while, just because the first move, it kind of came by instinct, just by pure luck. But then you have to work out the details here and there. But for the top players in the world, I'm pretty sure it'll take Magnus 30 seconds, maybe a minute max.
Let's see. Let's head to Tanya. So the puzzle is happening. And can Magnus Carlsen solve it?
Magnus, you've had an early day in office, but there's still some more chess. White to play, mate in 2. This is a puzzle for our viewers. Let's see how quickly you can get it. I'm going to start the timer now. Okay? Oh, wow. Yeah. Not so easy, huh?
Yeah, first thought was rook f4, but that doesn't actually work. So mate in 2s you can usually find by process of elimination. Okay, let me see. Is it Zugzwang? That could be. It sometimes is in these cases. So let me try and trying to think, yeah. I'm assuming it's not a check, first of all.
It usually isn't, no, in such puzzles?
No, that's... Like, the times that I can't solve this is usually because it's a check on the first moment. It didn't occur to me. Oh, wait a sec.
A minute down?
A minute down. Yeah, usually...
Time pressure?
No. I just wanna solve it. I don't really care about the time.
If it's any consolation, David said this is one of the hardest mate in twos.
Okay. So I gotta consider every move. Ah, Queen A8.
Are you sure?
No, but I mean, once I saw the move, I thought it had to be. Yeah, but Queen D4 takes away the D4 square, so Rook E3 is mate. Otherwise, it's Knight D6 or Knight C5. Is that it?
Is that your final answer?
I mean, are you trying? No, yeah, that is my final answer.
Well done, you got it in about less than 2 minutes. Yeah. Not bad. It's nice, huh?
Yeah, it's really nice. But it's typical. It's actually typical of these puzzles.
So what's the world champion's thought process while solving this? How do our viewers get to this?
Yeah, I was just looking at all sorts of different moves. And then I was trying to look for sort of weird moves. And once I saw Queen A8, I knew it has to be the solution. And I mean, the only sort of half difficult move is thus Queen D4, Rook E3. Otherwise, yeah, it's just knight check. Nice.
Nice. Well, clearly Magnus Carlsen is in form. Thanks.
Fantastic. It took him a minute and a half-ish, and then Magnus Carlsen solved and confirmed it's a super hard puzzle.
It is super hard. I was off. I thought it would take him 30 seconds, but after he stumbled on the idea, he kind of realized immediately, and I think we have to explain to the viewers now. We have to reveal the answer, and well done to those of you at home who did put it on the board, who did get there by process of elimination. And here, Magnus started by looking at the checks. He said, actually, in these puzzles, it's very rarely a check, and that's correct. Because, for example, if rook takes pawn check, the king can start to run. As soon as the king runs into the open, it's going to be hard to take away all of its escape squares. So actually, checking is not the right answer initially. He also mentioned this check, a double check, but the king does have one escape square in the center of the board, and this is key to the actual eventual answer. So the idea is Zugzwang, as Magnus mentioned, and Zugzwang means putting your opponent in a position where every move weakens and actually worsens their chances. And that Zugzwang starts with putting the queen in the corner, queen to A8. Actually, that is a trick in these puzzles. Often it's the least logical move that's actually the answer, and that is here. Rather than, for example, try to check along the board, you check from the diagonals, and it's not an immediate check, but it will be next move. And the problem for black is the king can't move, the pawns can't move, those are frozen. The only legal moves you can make are with the rook or with the queen. If you move the queen to a random square, the knight drops back here, and this is checkmate because due to the X-ray on the king, the rook is frozen. It cannot go and capture the white knight. The black king is trapped in the center of the board. If the rook moves, however, for example, across the board, the knight drops back again, and due to the X-ray, the knight is untouchable. This is, again, checkmate. The king trapped in the center, hit by the white knight. And Magnus mentioned the only difficult move to see, the only difficult answer is if the queen steps to this square. Now there are no knight checks. If the knight enters either of these two squares, it's captured by the black queen. But now, remember that escape square for the black king? It's been taken away by its own queen. So white's rook steps across now, and a double check, and it's actually checkmate. The black king has nowhere to run. So difficult puzzle, but Magnus did get there in just under 2 minutes.
Wow. Wow, that was so cool. And you beat him, David.
Just about, yeah.
That was max 30 seconds for you when you did it yesterday.
Yeah, but I do a lot of these puzzles. And actually, my thinking was, what's the least logical move? And as soon as I thought Queen A8, I was like, OK, it must be that one.
Wow.
But yeah, I think Magnus showed a more human way of doing it, just process of elimination. That's the key, not just in puzzles, but also in chess.
Yeah. I also have to say that Magnus was placed on the spot.
I didn't have cameras on me.
If you'd kind of asked us with the camera lights glaring, solve this puzzle now, I'm not even sure I would get it after 5 minutes. My brain would just be all bit frazzled and under pressure. So I'm very impressed by Magnus, and I love the way, I have to give a big shout out to Tanya, because I love the way she put him under pressure. She's like, are you sure? Is that your final answer? You can see him kind of go, Love it.
Love it. Fantastic. I hope you guys have enjoyed the puzzle as well, and that some of you were able to solve it together, maybe with your friends and family. Magnus is finished for the day, solving puzzles and winning 3 games against Mamedyarov. But chess is still going on in the arena in San Francisco. Wesley So is up by 1 point against Arjun Erigaisi today. And if he wins this game 3, he will win the match in 3 games. And look at the bar.
Yeah, it looks like Wesley's fortunes have turned around so suddenly. He won his first game of the whole tournament, and he's about to win his second. Wow. The floodgates have opened. That's often how it works at the top level of chess, at the top level of all sports. You might be in bad form, your confidence is low, but as soon as you get one win, things start to flow. And if we just do a quick count on the board, White is a pawn up, but also White has full domination. White's knight on f5, beautiful piece. White's pawn mass in the centre, control all the important squares. Black's knight on b8, can't get in the game. Black's bishop is just staring at thin air. What do you think, Jovanka? Just game over in the next few moves?
It is game over. I mean, like you say, Erigaisi's pieces are just in dire straits. I mean, they can hardly move. And there you see Wesley just launch his rook up the board. I mean, I have to say, it's like this in life as well. You know, one piece of good luck and suddenly everything starts to work in your favour. Yeah. It's a beautiful feeling.
It's all in the mind, right? Just if you think that nothing can go wrong, then often nothing ever goes wrong. And yeah, Wesley suddenly just planting his rook deep in the black camp. I mean, he's guaranteed at this point almost to win. White's other rook can line up. You can double the 2 rooks together. White's knight can even start jumping in with some checks right now. Black is, Black is just paralysed. Black can barely move a single piece. And you couldn't even capture White's rook on the last move because it was supported by a nice pawn. It would have been replaced there by a very strong pass pawn. And also the bishop pair, which I love. They have the potential. Those 2 white bishops, they might be blocked by their own pawns right now, but they are on the longest possible diagonals. So as soon as White's able to step forward one last time in the centre, those bishops will spring to life and end the game. And plus 5.5, the computer says, even though it's only a 1-pawn advantage for Wesley, that does show just the magnitude of his advantage. Yeah, look at Erigaisi. I mean, it must be so difficult playing 3 a.m. or something in the morning now. Hopeless position. He just hasn't got into gear this whole tournament. Yeah. Just hasn't been able to adjust.
I was wondering about this move. I was thinking, is it possible to capture the knight, be all flashy? And yeah.
The answer is yes.
Wesley says, absolutely. We have to take a dive into this position and find out what happens if Erigaisi captures that rook.
Yeah.
As he's obliged to do, actually, if it's either that or resign.
Yeah, he has to take this rook. We might see him resign, so let's show this quickly. The rook, if it's captured, would allow the white queen to infiltrate. This is a check. If, for example, the black king slides over into the corner, I think there's a bunch of different wins, but the most simple one that I see is the queen just stepping forward. You're threatening checkmate on this square. Remember how powerful knights on f5 can be. There's no real way to defend it other than shuffling across with your rook. And then we talked about the bishops. You can just step White's pawn forward in the centre, and this is going to be deadly. The bishop now breaks free, threatening checkmate on g7, and you're attacking the knight. Nothing to do. You just have to give up material here. For example, you can throw your knight in the way the black queen is defended, so a queen trade here would at least allow Erigaisi to survive a bit longer, but after White captures, we'll see a deadly check, and Black has to shed all of his material if he wants to save this game. And I think in the current position, which we have actually just shown, they are following the variation we showed. Yeah, Erigaisi is about to resign. This is just too deadly, this threat. And yeah, Wesley, great technique. Why not finish it off in style? Why not go directly for the opponent's king when the rest of your position is so dominant?
And he still has 10 minutes on the clock, Arjun Erigaisi, but it's going to be 4 a.m. in the morning in a few minutes for him. He's been very successful over the last few tournaments on the tour. Do you think it is the time zone that is the
the big issue for him?
Yeah, I think partly it's the time zone. It's just incredibly hard to adjust. Even if you spent days, in that kind of routine, trying to peak at 1 a.m. in the morning, it's hard the longer the day goes on. And it's no coincidence that the matches, they're just not at his usual quality. Normally he's really tenacious, a great defender, even if he's got a bad position. But it's the time zone, but also something that Magnus mentioned in the interview, his openings.
Aha.
This game, he was lost after, what was it, about 10 moves as black? Maybe even less. I think he was lost after 6 moves as black. And at the top level, players as good as Magnus, as good as Wesley, they will punish you.
Yeah.
So back to the drawing board for Erigaisi. He'll come back stronger. He's already at the elite, and he's already made his big breakthrough, but with a bit more work, a bit more luck as well in some situations, he's going to come back.
At only 19 years old, Arjun Erigaisi, one of those young super talents from India. Super late at night for him. I've been complaining here in Oslo. We finish usually around 2 a.m. at night. Great for you, David, because you're a night person. You're very much a morning person, Jovanka.
I am a morning person.
What has it been like for you?
It's been tough in the mornings.
Yeah.
What can I say? No, it's definitely very hard, and he's playing at. I mean, if Shaq was, he starts at 1:30 in the morning, Erigaisi. So that means it is now, I'm not very good at maths.
It's 4 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, this is very, very difficult to do. I mean, bear in mind, he will have been training for that. But this is also the very first time that he's playing this match format and having to play not so many people and relying on opening preparation, all those critical things. But it is very unusual, actually, as David's mentioned, to see Erigaisi play like this. But I think somehow his luck hasn't been on his side. And he steps forward with his knight. This is just desperation.
Yeah, he captures a pawn, but now if white just steps back, for example, the white queen can step back and take the knight. It has just done. White's actually ahead in material again. If we do a count, white has a knight and bishop and a pawn just for a rook. So white's several points up on the tally in terms of material. And white has this ongoing attack. Look at the g7 pawn. White's dark squared bishop from afar is attacking. White's knight is attacking that pawn. All white needs to do is step back his king to any safe square. I would probably just go back to f1 just to guard white's light squared bishop. I think we'll see Erigaisi give up there.
Yeah, I think that the white king can unfortunately retreat to almost any square. There's only one square on the board that would be an absolute disaster. And there's no way that Wesley was ever going to put the king on the e1 square. Instead, he runs up to f3. And again, the queens are going to come off the board. And this means that Erigaisi has a material deficit. And it's just going to be game over. Nothing to do with expecting him to resign now.
Yeah, pretty much now. OK, he takes the queens off first. He defends that g7 point that we were mentioning. But, OK, Wesley can just slowly regroup now. He can even capture on g7 if he wants. He will go into an endgame, 2 clear pawns, 2 connected pass pawns up. Or you can see Harry the h-pawn start marching. White's light square bishop might repurpose itself. Yeah, this one is a matter of time, a matter of technique. I think Erigaisi's just playing out of inertia now. He just doesn't want to click that resign button, end the day. Maybe it would be wise just to go to sleep, just to get this one out of his system.
I do quite like Wesley's last move, though. It's very sadistic. You know, it's just simply improving his worst-placed piece. The bishop is getting ready to relocate itself to the c4 square, attack a rook, and, well, Erigaisi just lines up the 2 rooks, but the rooks are actually not targeting a single thing.
Yeah.
And I also like your move, h4.
Yeah.
Push the h-pawn.
Black is actually attacking that h-pawn, so it makes some sense. But no, Wesley brings his bishop in. I think he's getting ready to try and create some checkmating ideas against the black king. Black's king is trapped in the corner, hence Erigaisi giving it some breathing space. But this still won't help. All white needs to do is add the rook into the mix. Somehow add white's rook into the attack. And, yeah, that will be the breaking point. Yeah, the problem, I think the reason we're not showing any lines here is because Wesley can just build up. Black is almost helpless. Black's bishop offside, not doing anything. Black's rooks look nice and pretty on the open file, but every infiltration square they want to use is covered by white's bishops. Still, it's just been a tough day. Tough 3 days, actually, for Erigaisi.
And it's been a tough day for 4 players today. Mamedyarov lost in 3 games to Magnus Carlsen. Erigaisi is about to do the same. And in the 2 other matches, Giri could be about to lose in only 3 games to Duda, bar all the way over to Duda's side. And if he wins, the match will be over. And same situation, Prague has won both of the first 2 games against Liam Le. And the bar very much over to his side here in game 3. Yeah. Does it look like those 2 matches will be finished as well?
Looks like we'll have a wipeout for all of the players who have been down in their matches. Nobody able to fight back and strike. We saw yesterday that amazing comeback from Anish Giri, but unfortunately that was just lightning striking. It's like winning the lottery, coming back from 2 points down. The other players who are taking risks in must-win situations, they've been punished. And sometimes that's just the way it goes in chess. And okay, Wesley's given up the H2 pawn. I'm slightly surprised. I think this is still good enough, but why complicate it? Why give Black's rook a pawn for free?
I think his plan is to go for the G pawn, and you mentioned that he wanted to mobilize the rook. Now is the time to trade off rooks and take the G pawn off the board, and the Black king is going to be helpless.
Yeah, I think that's the most simple right now. We're expecting Wesley to offer the rook trade. The one thing you probably shouldn't get carried away with is, okay, this one is good as well. I was going to say you shouldn't get carried away necessarily and start attacking Black's rook, because suddenly there are threats against the white king. Still, white is winning, but you have to be very careful of your own king's safety. That's why in the position we were expecting the rook to come across. If there's a rook exchange, white's king will breathe a sigh of relief. No more threats against it now, and this pawn would drop next move. But Wesley, he goes for the flashy approach again. He grabs this pawn first. And if the knight is captured, then I don't think he'll take back yet. He might just slide across with his rook, and he's going to break in now with this piece. Due to the pin here, Black's rook is not running away anytime soon, and you can capture it anytime you want. In any endgame, white will be pawns ahead with more active pieces. So Erigaisi just choosing his poison here. He's going to lose this game, but how is he going to go down? Okay, he moves his king. So still hinting that he wants to get active with this rook at least. And I think that's something that Wesley should try to avoid if he can. No reason to complicate the issue. Why not just move your rook across? Offer that exchange that you mentioned, Jovanka.
Yeah, simple is good. And Wesley, well, he's such a practical player. He was always going to do that. I had no doubt.
Yeah, he's maybe, other than Magnus, he's the best player at kind of choosing safety and understanding his limits. And removing all the opponent's fun. And the reason, again, this is so resignable almost for Black is because white's pawns in the center are going to start running forward very shortly. First, you can take this pawn off the board with white's knight. And even if Black's rook takes, you can just protect. Whoops, mouse slip. You can go back. And these 3 pawns are going to decide the game. Black's king alone will not be able to stop them. Wesley going through the motions. He's giving us a good demonstration of getting a winning advantage and not allowing the opponent any counterplay.
Yeah, it's a good demonstration, as you say, of technique. We often get asked, how to win those 1 games. And Wesley's just saying, well, it's all about killing your opponent's counterplay. And there you go. He's very careful with his king. King just moves off the 3rd row, so there's no nasty tricks. And again, the question to Erigaisi is, how are you going to continue? How are you going to fight against these 3 pawns that are going to start advancing up the board? And the answer, unfortunately, is you can't. You can't do a single thing about it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Black's pawns, they just can't move.
No.
They can't start running. Any Black pawn push will just be captured. And now white's king, I'm assuming it's going to start running. This is clever. Normally, you don't want your king on the 1st rank, but Black has no more checks. If Black's rook tries to give check in the corner, white's dark square bishop will actually come back and take it. So no more checks. You've run out of ideas there. Black's bishop still helpless, really. And white's pawns, if you give him time, Wesley will happily push those pawns, throw them forward. And they are actually surprisingly quick. Yeah. Just a sad day. A really bad day for Erigaisi.
Yes. He's lost all his games in 3, hasn't he?
All of his matches so far.
Yeah. So all his matches,
I mean, he's had a tough start to the event. He played Magnus yesterday, Wesley today. Hopefully, for Erigaisi fans, that he'll get some points later on. It's all uphill from here, right? It's all going to get better.
Undoubtedly, the chess will improve, but the problem is, will the mind be always thinking about what could have been? Will it be like just lingering on those bad losses? And the one thing I have to say about Erigaisi, he actually mentioned in a previous tournament that he was working with a mental coach, and they very much relied on his parents' support. You know, whenever he had a bad game, you know, they would talk to him and they would say, it's okay, just keep on fighting. And with the right words, he could often boost his motivation.
It must be so smart for chess players to work with mental coaches, since it's such a mental game.
Yeah, and actually that's maybe the biggest regret of my career, that I didn't employ or didn't talk to a mental coach sooner when I was a bit younger, because there are plenty of things that I feel that a mental coach could have helped with. Now I feel it's, you know, what's the point? It's a bit too late. But when I was younger, I had this mental block when it came to kind of those big money rounds, those final games where a win would get you a prize, a loss will get you nothing. And I just couldn't cope with the tension. I think I went 3 years without winning a final game. And I would just always crack under the pressure. And team events, I would struggle. I just get kind of nervous about my teammates' performances, and then I don't play my usual game, and things like that, which clearly mental coach has helped Erigaisi with. He seems so calm most of the time. But unfortunately, at the very, very top level, when your opponent's inspired, like Wesley is here, it's you might have the best mentality in the world, but it's hard to fight against their strong moves.
But we see a lot of tilts, right, on the tour.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're working with a mental coach, you are maybe more able to strike back after losing.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it yesterday from Praggnanandhaa. He went on full tilt.
Yeah.
You know, he lost a game against Anish, and then he lost another game, and that was very critical. He couldn't handle that, and he also lost tie-break game. And but then you kind of saw that because he has his coach Ramesh with him, he was able to reset. And today, of course, he comes back swinging harder.
Yeah.
And there we go. The G-pawn is advancing up the board, and we're going to see it advance one square more. And now the king has to put itself in the eye line of the dark square bishop. The knight will just move away with the check. And the two fellows, F and G-pawns, they're just going to win the game, march to a victory.
Yeah, if you look at the right half of the board from the E file to the H file, it's just the black king fighting against the whole of white's army. It's like, this is Sparta, you know, it's just one warrior against hundreds almost. And that's why the evaluation bar says it's so good for white. White's knight can move out the way, and that will be a check from white's dark square bishop. Like Jovanka says, you can just continue pushing the pawns, push the white F pawn. Yeah, this wave, this tide that's going to wash over the black king, it's coming. Nothing to do. The knight moves out the way. Discovered check. Black king has to run. And then the pawns are moving.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just hard to suggest anything here. Okay, he moves his king. I think this is the best chance, at least stopping the white pawns from advancing temporarily.
That Spartan warrior. Unfortunately, it's not a very good warrior. I mean, it can get checkmated, and you always have to protect it. So I like this move from Wesley. Cool calculation. Once again, the F-pawn is threatening to give a deadly check.
Yeah, black C-pawn takes too long, simply. He's pushing it, he's trying, this is his best bet, but it still needs... I mean, he needs to move his rook out the way, he needs two pawn pushes, and white's pawns are now gaining time every turn against that Spartan king.
Now they're going to take another step forward.
Yeah, push the G-pawn.
That's close to queening.
That is very, very close. And the problem is that when a queen appears, it would also put the king in mortal danger. So even if it is a race and black manages the queen, well, it's not going to be of any use. And here he comes. Gives a check.
Black will give a check. White's about to make a new queen, though. I think any safe square for this king. I think
put it.
Any legal move, I think, is winning for white. But yeah, why not move the king to the G2 square? There we go. Wesley chooses the safest on a light square, away from any bishop checks. And yeah, a white queen is appearing on the board. Next move, white's knight can now come forward and support the advance. Cover that G8 square. Promotion inevitable.
Yep.
And Wesley plays that move. A white queen is about to appear. Will Erigaisi resign, or will he allow checkmate? Looks like he's given up. Wesley takes the win.
His first match win of the Tour Finals. Wesley So takes all 3 points after only 3 games. A dominant match win for the American. Finally
he's on a roll now. Wesley So started winning on day 3 of the tour finals. 3 points for him. And just as he finished, we did see also Duda win the match against Giri in game 3, winning 2 games. Duda. Anish Giri has struggled in the San Francisco arena today. And Wesley So must be, do you think he's relieved now to finally get that match win?
I think he was more relieved at actually winning the game because he came so close against Magnus. He also had an opportunity to beat Liam Lay in the first game of their encounter. And now he was also close in their first match against Erigaisi, but that slipped from his hands. So when he finally managed to win a game, it would have been like, wow, I can actually play chess. I can actually win. And of course, once that's out of the way, the psychological barriers break down. And we see that Wesley was just very impressive in this 3rd game.
Yeah, he's heading out to the lounge. I'm excited to hear from Wesley after winning his first match in the tour finals.
Wesley, you mentioned you're happy to win your first game, and now you won your first match. Feeling good?
Yeah, certainly. First meltwater match win of the year. I'm very pleased. I think the match turned out pretty okay. I think Arjun is a very strong player, but maybe he's focusing on classical chess. It seems his play here in rapid seems to be a bit uncertain, like he's doubting himself. But he's very young, he's very strong, and he's gonna improve pretty soon, I'm sure.
Magnus had mentioned that Arjun still struggled a little bit with his openings. Did you have the same feeling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this match, for sure he showed it. I don't know, his classical opening seems to be pretty fine because I remember we were preparing for him in the Olympiad and he crushed Lanier Dominguez with his F3 Nimso. And I was very pleased at that point because Levon was feeling sick. And if he played, then I would have black against Arjun. And that's the last thing I want for the last round, the Olympiad. I think his openings are fine in classical. Maybe just here he's not really preparing too deeply, conserving his energy for the games, maybe. But it's pretty amazing then that he's reached so far, considering that his openings could use a little improvement. It's a good sign that it's a good sign of a very talented player when they can reach that far.
Undoubtedly, he's one of the biggest talents currently. I want to ask you, were you surprised, Wesley, with how quickly you got an edge out of the opening in the final game?
Yeah, well, it was. The answer is simple. He simply mixed up his opening move order. He's supposed to play knight e4 first instead of bishop b4 check. And that way, if I play g3, he's got queen a5, queen a2. So that's so funny how he played bishop b4 check first, how he just played it without thinking. I think he still couldn't move on from the loss in the second game. And for the last round, he figured he just play quickly and try to get a big edge on the clock, which he did. But with the 10-second increment, it didn't really work. I saw this idea before knight h4 in the youth championship, played by Ray Robson. I mean, black can play bishop e4 if he wants. I assume that's what Arjun was hoping for, like to get the structure where white has to play f3. But in a game, I had such a nice position. Yeah, doesn't happen all the time.
We saw you play flawlessly after getting that out of the opening, and we've seen this often in must-win situations. If you're down by 2 points, it really affects the quality of play and the decision when you know that you have to just go all out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's pressure for both sides. Happened to me in Toronto when I was leading against Hikaru. Was very nervous for the last game. I guess, yes, it's not easy to play for a win with the black pieces. You have to wait for your opponent to make a mistake. And, if you're worse, you can't force the issue. Maybe Arjun should have just played solidly with black and tried to win with the white pieces. Maybe that's a better option. But these matches are so short. It's just whoever wins the first game has a super large edge. 4 games, In Toronto, we played eight games. Then at least you have a second day to come back. But with 4 games, you can hardly avoid to make any mistakes. That's why I kind of regret not winning game 2 against Magnus, because if I won that one, then I would practically have assured myself of a blitz tiebreak, maybe. But I think the strategy in these short matches is just to, play it safe. Draw is fine. If you go to the blitz tiebreak, that's fine too. I mean, players are very strong here, and just try not to lose the first one.
Wesley, after these 2 tough matches, it must be such a relief to win a match and get back on track.
Yeah, certainly. I'm very happy. But at the same time, Arjun also lost all his matches so far, which is unfortunate. But it's not a sign that I'm back in the tournament yet. I have to beat someone strong, for sure.
Tomorrow you're up against Prague, another very talented and very strong Indian. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, at least I can see him clearly. Huh? I can look. In Game 4, when Magnus blundered against me, he was pouting himself. So I was more curious on watching his reaction when he played Queen G6 than anything else. But it's nice to, play someone face to face. I've always been impressed by these young teenagers. India has a lot, Uzbekistan has a lot, and they're very strong. You can never underestimate these guys.
All right, all the best for tomorrow, Wesley. Enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Wesley So is definitely not the only match winner today. All matches have finished after 3 games, you guys. And Jan-Krzysztof Duda wins 3rd day in a row. He wins the match against Anish Giri today. And the 2 players in Game 3, they finished the whole thing, both of them laughing, looking at the position. Look at Duda smiling, and at some point Anish started laughing and smiling at this as well, even if he lost this game. What happened here?
Well, I've never seen anyone so happy with themselves as Jan-Krzysztof Duda. He's so proud of his tactic, and rightly so. We will show this in a moment, but he sacrificed a rook, he sacrificed a queen, and he calculated mate in 11. This position, I turned on the engine, and it says mate in 11. Duda found it. And remember, this isn't a puzzle. This is in a real game where you don't get a hint, you don't get told, you don't get a nudge. And here, it's all about looking for checks, even if they look stupid, even if they look so unnatural. If you look for checks in every position, sometimes they work. And if they do, they're very powerful. And here, we should mention, white was winning in a really mundane way. If you just exchange rooks, the black king is open anyway. You will win this game. But the reason Duda was smiling was because he calculated 1 check, giving up a rook on an empty square for free. King takes the rook. He calculated a 2nd check. The king is pretty much forced to advance. If you go back, then you will be checkmated in a really nice way as well. The bishop can come out now, lure out the black king, and if it's captured, this would also end in checkmate. So the king advanced instead, and now a 3rd check. The king moves, and this is the coup de grace, as they say, the finishing touch, the hammer blow, giving up the queen. This is what caused the real smile, because after the queen is captured, rook takes, white delivers checkmate with just 3 pieces to the king. No matter where the king goes, the game will end. If it takes the knight, the king is trapped. You checkmate with the pawn, also incredibly rare, but the move Giri played, stepping back, this fails to what Duda found. He spotted all of this in advance. He moved his rook out the way, discovered check, and when the king steps back, another check, and finally, the killer blow. You force the king around in a circle, and you trap it in the corner. He calculated all of this in advance, and I think we have a late contender for game of the season.
Incredible stuff by Jan-Krzysztof Duda. We're joined by the co-leader in the tour finals. Jan-Krzysztof, how do you feel about the way you ended that last game?
Hello, I'm very happy, of course. It's not every day you get to checkmate your opponent. I mean, not really checkmate, and that's, in a way, I'm kind of disappointed that he didn't, that there was no checkmate on the board, but the combination was so beautiful. And so, atypical, and but also, with checks, something extraordinary to me, and I have always, could appreciate beauty in chess, and it's very, it's very nice to be on the good side of things.
Absolutely. And David calls it a contender for game of the season, calculating mate in 8, I guess. This must mean you are in just perfect form. You're on fire.
Yeah, you know, it's basically a long variation with checks. I mean, all checks along the way. So yeah, actually, I did see it very, very quickly, but had to, you know, calculate it like 1,000 times, you know, to make sure that it's really checkmate and I don't blunder anything, because I mean, otherwise it would be disaster. But luckily, yeah, it was working, and it's very, very nice, you know, to be smiling. I mean, me smiling against Anish, not reverse as it used to be. So very nice.
Definitely. Would you call this one of the best games of your career?
The combination, yes. The game, not really. I mean, I once again got into this variation. I had the game against Yuangi like a couple of years back in this Ragozin, and I actually had, I think, the very same position till some moment, and I mean, I drew that game, but, you know, couldn't remember anything apart of the fact that, I mean, a part of the result, and it was very annoying because basically I didn't know if it was working for me or not, or how great it was. So, but on the other hand, you know, White's play is very straightforward, and it's always easier to be on the attacking side, and also the compensation was long term, I would say, with such a nice center pawns and knight on e5. So yeah, I mean, it's right now I can say, you know, that going again into this variation was very, very smart, but actually it was a coincidence.
It looked beautiful. And you are now, like yesterday, in shared lead with Magnus Carlsen in the tour finals. You already won one major this season, Oslo Esports Cup, but in that one you kind of came towards the end of the tournament. Now you're on top here from the very get-go. How do you see your chances to win the whole thing?
I'm very optimistic, of course, but still, you know, more than a half of tournament has to be played. And also, I think I get like the most difficult opponents in the end. I mean, Magnus is, of course, always the toughest opponent. And against Wesley So, which I'm playing next to the Ross rounds, is I haven't won a match against him yet. So, yeah, so I mean, it will be definitely challenging, and I think it's too early, you know, to consider about, you know, winning the tournament or not. I'm just focused to play good chess and yeah, and be, you know, as precise as I can get.
Sounds like a great plan. Jan-Krzysztof, enjoy that beautiful finish you had to today, and best of luck tomorrow as well.
Thank you very much.
He won in 3 games today, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, against Anish Giri, who's won both his matches before today in tie-breaks today. It was a match loss for Anish.
Anish, a tough day today against Duda. Tell us about the match.
Yeah, it was difficult today for sure. I made mistakes in every game. The first one was a pity for sure. I got kind of ambitious at some point. I felt like he misplayed it a little bit. I could win a pawn, but as soon as I won the pawn, I realized that I'm stuck, and I no longer saw how to pull the emergency brake properly, and I got worse there. It was kind of strange because like I saw multiple ways where I could play safe, but I thought like winning a pawn should be good. And then when he plays knight on b4, I realized my knights are kind of stuck, and yeah, it kind of went very quickly from me thinking I'm better to me thinking I'm worse, and I didn't really notice like where exactly that moment happened. And in the second game I got some chances. Maybe I was a little slow, and in the end that told, so I wasn't able to push. And the last game, I don't know, like I think I was not really remembering my stuff very well, but if I compare these variations to what I know, I think I should have a decent version of these complications. but somehow it was very difficult to play. My king is very weak, and he's got a few pawns for a piece. And the way I played it, he's got this pawn block. It's over. I should have at least given back the exchange, and then I don't like my position at all. But I should have done it, because actually what I went for is very bad, and I kind of realized it's bad. But there's always the materialistic side in me, hoping that maybe something will happen. But I just had to trust the gut.
All right, but despite having this very difficult, these difficult games, we saw in Game 3, there was this beautiful finish that happened after F6, and both you and Jan-Krzysztof Duda had a smile on your face. It felt like you were also admiring the beauty, despite it being difficult for you.
Yeah, at that point I saw multiple wins for him, but I didn't see this first one. It was very pretty. I think it's a very pretty variation somehow. The way, I don't know, the way the rook goes to e4, e7, I think it's very unusual, and it's kudos to him for finding it. I mean, I thought, for example, just take on c8 and f6, something like that, was completely winning, but I appreciated his efforts of trying to find a beautiful checkmate.
And was that the reason that you let it play out on the board?
I didn't fully let it play out on the board. I don't really like that. But okay, I think rook e5 is a move that some people would struggle with if they're very new at chess. But after that, I think Agadmator will show them how it's done.
And tomorrow you're playing against Magnus. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough. But I will definitely try my hardest to give a good fight. Because usually with Magnus, either you get crushed or it gets close. And yeah, let's hope tomorrow will be one of the matches when it gets close.
We look forward to it. All the best. Get some rest.
Thank you.
The only player in the San Francisco arena to lose today, Anish Giri, in 3 games. Jan-Krzysztof Duda finishing off in style. All matches finished in 3 games. Wesley So, all 3 points against Ergaisi. Magnus Carlsen, 3 wins and 3 points against Shakhriyar Mamdyarov. And Pragnananda, 3 massive wins against Liam Le to gain all 3 points. Standings in the tour finals after 3 out of 7 rounds. Magnus Carlsen and Jan-Krzysztof Duda have both scored a full score. 3 wins, 9 points for both of them. Anish Giri, 5 points behind with 4 points, same as now Prag and Liam Le. Shakhriyar Mamdyarov, he's still stuck on 3 points. Wesley So getting his first points today. 3 points. Arjun Ergaisi still in bottom of the table. But a great day today for Prag. He lost the match yesterday, but today a massive win for the young Indian.
Prag wrapping up the match in 3 games with 3 wins. You must be relieved after the way things went the first 2 days.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be back. My first match win, so yeah, I'm happy with the way today went overall.
That also against somebody like Liam, who's such a difficult player to beat. What clicked today for you?
I don't know. The first game, what happened in the first game? No, second game I can remember. Yeah, the first game I got this very nice knight g5, knight h5, and quickly it went my way. And second game, I think he made this emotional decision with f4 because of the match situation. Because otherwise, I don't think Liam would play that in probably 100 games. He would never play f4. So I think it was just an emotional decision. After that, I got a very good position, but then I was not playing well. Then I had a lot of chances. But okay, in the end, with little time, his king was weak and I won. And this game, okay, I needed a draw, so I didn't want to. I didn't want to think about that, but it comes to your mind, so nothing can be done. And I played this knight e4 decision, which I'm not very happy about. It was trying to make a draw, which I shouldn't be trying. I mean, I don't mean that way. Like, I shouldn't be just ruthlessly going for a draw. But then, okay, things somehow turned out for me. After he played e4, I think my position was very comfortable there.
Do you think after the experience of yesterday being 2 game points up, it helped you today to keep things under control in the 3rd game?
It definitely helps, the experience, but I don't want this experience. I wanted to win yesterday. But yeah, overall, I think, as I said, this whole tournament is a very good experience, to learn how to play this match situation, how not to play in a situation where you just need a draw. So this kind of situation is a very good experience for me.
And Prag, you're up against Wesley tomorrow. Your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, it'll be interesting and it'll be a tough match as well. So yeah, we'll see. I'm just hoping play some good chess there.
Okay, awesome. Talking about good chess, we've got a puzzle for you, so don't go anywhere, and all the best for tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Great day for Prag. And Tanya mentions the puzzles. It's been so much fun to see the viewers and the players solve this puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love how the progression on social media, you know, first of all, a lot of people submitted wrong answers and then they thought about it more and they were like, can I scratch that? And there we have Yogesh Yogendra, who said, David, it's unfair. It only took you 20 seconds. I had to stop doing my quantum assignment and waste 25 minutes on this. But you are completely right, Yogesh. Queen A8 followed by knight c5 is also the right answer.
Yeah.
But you get the joy, the eureka moment.
25 minutes well spent. Yeah.
Exactly. And if it's any consolation, Magnus Carlsen spent 1.5 minutes on this puzzle, and now Tanya has been able to gather the 3 other players in San Francisco as well. So let's take a look at that. Can they solve this incredibly hard puzzle?
So, Kaja, we've got Prag, Anish and Wesley here to solve our puzzle of the day. Let's see who gets it first and in how much time. White to play mate into. We've already got an answer.
Huh? I was thinking between Bishop H1. I heard somebody say Queen A8.
Yeah, I said it. I like the sound of it. I like the sound of that move. I like the sound of that move.
Yeah, normally mate into you just have to make a quiet move, so you have to look at king moves, queen moves.
Bishop H1 or Queen A8, like it's one of the pretty ones.
You guys have to give me one answer.
But Bishop F1, Bishop H1, there's Queen D8. Bishop H1, Queen D8.
Yeah, Bishop H1 is...
There's no discussion allowed.
Yeah.
It's made, no? Knight c5, knight d6.
No, I told Prag. I told you before, right?
Can we also get one position? Can we get one position without Prag interfering? So
the problem is Prag's coach wrote this puzzle books recently, so Prag knows all about it even before.
But there is no made in Tuesday.
Huh?
But there is no made in Tuesday.
Actually, we have a book.
Is Queen A8 your final answer, Prag?
Yeah. For everyone. For everyone.
All right, we have a winner. We have a winner here, but I have to say I have to give it to Prag. He's the first one who said it, Wesley.
So we split the price.
We'll speak to the chief arbiter.
Is there a prize for this?
No, you can't decide the winner because you have the same nationality. So there's conflict.
He said it first.
No, yeah.
She's biased.
You don't know. Maybe I told him.
There we have it. Prag with Queen A8 in about 10 seconds.
If there is like a rook here or something like this, and then you have all the pieces on the diagonal, and that would make it actually prettier. Then rook h2. You need one more extra rook.
You need a
they cannot. No, but there's probably some other. Yeah, does it work now?
No, but you won't. But I don't think.
Is Queen A8 the only move? Yeah, but now it's very pretty because now you've got all the pieces lined up, and the last piece comes on the diagonal, and it's over.
There we have it. Set up another puzzle competition, and this one Anish wins.
Where's my prize?
Your prize, another Puma shoe.
Yeah, you got your Puma shoes. Good luck. Good. Well done, Prag.
The mood in the San Francisco arena is great. We have finished 3 out of 7 days in the tour finals. And tomorrow, on day 4, there will be a match inside the San Francisco arena. It's going to be Anish Giri against Magnus Carlsen. But they do have some time now to enjoy the beautiful city of San Francisco, these 4 fantastic players. Thank you to everyone who is following around the world. And we hope to see you guys again tomorrow for day 4 of the tour finals.